hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground. Or not What up, folks? We're back, baby. Maddie Boom Batty is finally back. He is once again got the COVID cough. He's not feeling great, hot. I'll let him tell you all about that. Had a fascinating conversation last week with Shuttle Bay and Damian. Was a really cool conversation, but we're gonna have another great one tonight. Brian here from Foreverland. He's got a really cool concept for an NFT. Starting to get into the marketing phase. I'm happy we got him in the beginning, just so we can really take a long. Hey, wait a second. I'm hearing my voice. Where is that coming from?
I don't know, man.
Hold on. Okay, I had the volume on YouTube like tiny turned up, so I could hear double my voice. But I think we're good now. But yeah, we're gonna have a great conversation. But before that, Maddie, how you doing? Welcome back, buddy. What's the word?
Dude, so you say COVID cough, and here's what I'm gonna break it down as I told you this earlier, Mike. I think when we were at NFT NYC and literally everyone who went there got sick and got COVID, I don't think it was just COVID. I think I got COVID, but I also think I got whatever this bug is that's been going around because that's where the cough's coming from. Because it feels like that, but I actually don't have COVID. What I have is something far worse, and that is close proximity to small children. And anybody who knows that is where the pestilence comes from. It is unbelievable, man. They are machines. They touch everything, they lick everything, and their immune systems are fantastic. Mine, on the other hand, apparently could use some work. I thought I was like, oh man, I'm a pretty healthy person, working out, running all the time. Bro, I cannot handle saliva coming all over the place. It's like just people like, oh my gosh, kids will just pick up anything. Like this pen could fall in the mud and they'll just eat it, man. They don't care. Wild. So anyway, um, so yeah, a little bit of a COVID cough. Also woke up today with pink eye. That was fun. Nothing better than a room full of kids. But
Dude, it's
it's fun.
like I was able to see Brian stand up. Let's just say he's jacked and in shape. Okay. You're seeing most of his head right now, but Maddie is also jacked in shape. Matt might be the sickest, healthiest person that I know. He
Dude,
just
I'm
gets
telling
sick all the time. It's amazing.
you,
Uh,
it's all new. It's just like all this whole post-COVID world is wild. It's like before we cared about anything, nobody wore masks. I was fine. Now all of a sudden, people are like wiping things down, decent, and now I get sick all the time. So I don't know. I can't explain it to you, man. But it's it's a wild ride.
well,
But I have energy back, and it's good to be back. I'm excited about it. And at the end of the day, these are all easy things to get over. And dude, I'm excited about today. This is gonna be good. This is gonna
yeah,
be a really good conversation.
we're gonna have fun. Had a good day, super chill. It is another atmospheric river, is what they're calling it here in San Diego. It's been raining, dude. It's been raining since December. Like it doesn't do that here, and it rained hard today.
Dang.
It's just extremes anymore, man. You got a whole state that's in insane drought. Now there's too much rain. There's mudslides and shit all over the place. It's a disaster.
Jeez.
But I feel like I live on the East Coast. I just need some sunshine, man. It is. I don't know how people live in like Seattle or any place in the world that it's cold and rainy a majority of the time. Ireland, maybe. I think it rains there a lot. Like it's just not a fun life to live. The sun changes the mind
It does,
quickly and
man.
for the good.
It does. It's healing. It's healing, no doubt. No
100%.
doubt.
Well, enough
So I'm glad
about
you're
us. I'm going to let you introduce our man, the myth, the legend, Brian from Foreverland. So take it away, Manny.
yeah, man. Okay, so it was cool because you guys know that we get a chance to chat with our guests for a few minutes before the show. And it's always one of my favorite times because it's like, we don't know each other, you know what I mean? And so it's like we're excited to go through this journey and this conversation and build a friendship right here on the show. But I found out some fun facts, and here's the real thing. Whenever we go through and I'm talking to a guest and I say, hey, give me some interesting facts about yourself, you never know what you're going to get. Some people get very timid, and it's like, oh, there's nothing really that important about. And we've had people that say, there's nothing important about me. And we have to like pull it out of them. And then we find out they're freaking Bill Gates, right? But we've also had people that we think are like, oh man, they're going to have ton of stuff to say, and then it's like, "Oop, they're not as interesting as I thought." Man, Brian was ready to go. He started naming some professional accolades, and he started with, well, I don't know if this is important or not, but I had a startup company that I sold to a Fortune 500 company. And I'm like, okay, well, most people would put that on their life list, like just to be able to say they've done that ever. And that's like of entrepreneurs to be able to say that. And so he had a fashion style business that he had started. He sold it to Nordstrom. And by the way, speaking of Nordstrom, he was also the CTO of the Nordstrom Rack. So that was during COVID, running their entire technical operation, apps, websites, Wi-Fi, security, everything computer related. Had a team of 250 people that he was in charge of and responsible for. Made things happen there. Before that, he worked for Microsoft. He was part of the team that developed Teams. So he was working with the operating system, and back then it was Messenger, and I think you said Skybook, if that was right, Ryan. and that developed into what became now Microsoft Teams. And he helped write the code for that. So, electrical engineer by trade. You guys know him in the NFT world because of Foreverland, but here's the thing, man. This guy is very, very accomplished in the professional world already. And fun fact, I thought this was kind of cool. I'm going to give you two. So first is work for Procter and Gamble. If you don't know who they are, well, it's basically like a chemical engineering company. I think they make different products, one of which are hair products, cosmetics, things like that, and they make shampoo. Okay. So Brian, as an electrical engineer, is working with Procter and Gamble, and one of the things he got to do was find out all the cool ways to sell you guys, and not just you guys, but specifically you ladies, some of that herbal essence. You know what I'm talking about. You got to get those real nice Barry Manilow voices going in there and get people excited about getting some suds in the hair. And he was part of all that. And when Mike says this dude is jacked and in shape, he was in some of those. And so you just need to understand this dude's from Venezuela and he does not mess around. Look at those locks right now on camera. You know those were real nice in a Herbal Essence commercial. So Herbal Essence commercial, electrical engineering background. And the fun fact is this dude has gone and taken off on a plane 40 more times than he has landed on a plane because he's into skydiving. So he jumps out of perfectly good airplanes and he does it for fun. He's done it 40 plus times. And so I'm really excited, Brian, to get into this conversation because you just in this, I mean, I feel like you could already write a book about your life and it'd be interesting, it'd be worth reading. But it sounds like you're just getting started. And I'm really curious to see with a person with this type of background, electrical engineering, but also this much experience working for, I mean, large companies, big name brands, understanding the marketing side of it as well, and how you're going to be able to take that and what you're crafting with Web3. I think it's going to be really interesting. So welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you.
Wow, Maddie, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for having me. It's very humbling, and I'm very excited. Very excited to having this conversation. Very excited to kind of tell you more about what I'm working on, and to get build up that friendship in public. I think it's going to be very fun.
Hell
It's gonna
yeah,
be good.
man. We're going to do it all live online and on YouTube and Twitch as well. So we're going to get right into it, man. World famous midlife crisis question. How'd you get the seat you're sitting in today? Please give us episode 1, which is your childhood and your upbringing. 2, your professional career. 3, how you found Web3 crypto and what you're doing now and beyond. So let's start with episode 1, man. Hit us.
Perfect. Dude, I was born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela, in South America. My dad is a Spanish immigrant. My mom is Venezuelan second generation immigrant to Venezuela. And I had a very, very lucky opportunity to just get exposed to computers very early during the 80s when I was born. That's a time when Microsoft is coming up, personal computers are happening, and computers were just a few characters, there's a blinking cursor, and that was about it. And I just got bitten by that bug. I just fell in love with them, and they were so easy to program, to configure, to make him do what you wanted to do, and the possibilities were infinite. It was so rewarding, and I just got towards computers from very, very young, and then I just take advantage of this whole experience that we've all got to live. If you remember what computers were in the 80s and video consoles and basic technology that would show up and VCRs and all those equipments that were all within a programmable, configurable way, like nothing was before that or nothing was comparable to that. So that's kind of my upbringing. I've been programming computers since I'm 7 years old, and that's the thing I do. And I would make little video games and take it to my high school and install it in the computer lab so everybody would get a chance to play it. And that's kind of how I got started.
So, and by the way, fun fact there too, not only do you know computer languages, but you speak English, Spanish, French, and you are learning Mandarin. So you're just like languages all around for sure.
I really enjoy it and really enjoy the structure of languages, how it gets connected, and I think the language has this dual thing. It's like you can learn the vocabulary, you can learn some words, you can learn sentences and how to communicate. But then there's the next level that you start learning how people think that use that language as their main language. Because normally you can't tell apart from your first language and your thinking process which one is which. But I think once you start adding the third and fourth, the difference are so stark that you start realizing how important for certain people or cultures is describing things. In some others is adding emotion. In some others being factual. In some other is a little bit more being not precise with the intent of decorating the language. And it's so fascinating that we all are trying to do the same thing, get to know each other, ask each other questions, understanding directions, but there will be so many different ways that humans have figured out how to solve it. And I just know four of them. So there's so many more. And I would love to know
Man,
the principles and
wow.
how they work.
So
Great
take us
insight.
through. Yeah, take us through. So take us through childhood. I mean, you said you got you got really into the computers. How was that introduced? Was it just you guys got a PC at home? Was it just like something like that? What was it that caught the that got you to caught the bug? Did you play video games? How did that kind of parlay growing up? Did you study a lot computers in school? How'd it go?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So my I guess my luckiest streak begins with my dad being into computers. So my dad used to have a I mean, he used to get into computers when he was younger as a professional. And then by the time I was born and I kind of I'm able to read, that I guess is the first blocker for not being able to use a computer is not being able to read. Um, that's when I got exposed to it was an Epson QX10. I remember the thing. It ran CPM. It was an operating system, very old, from the 70s. And then the TRS-80, a Radio Shack product, that is a very popular one, very famous during the Apple II time, is when I get a first chance to program a computer in BASIC. And my dad was trying to teach my older brother, my 10-year-old brother, 11-year-old brother. And if you have an older brother, you know that the middle brother or any other one wants to be like your older brother. Your older brother is a superhero. They do anything that they can. They're so strong, they're faster, and they're older than you, but you don't know that that's kind of where it comes from.
Right.
And so I was trying to follow and trying to see what was that thing that they were working on, they were doing. And my brother didn't really caught on to it, but I just fell in love. I just fell in love with the idea of being able to program something that would ask you what's your name, and I would say Brian. I'd say hello, Brian. Like, what? This
Hmm.
is so cool. I mean, this is the 80s. The other option was like kicking a ball outside, right? There was not even a Sega Genesis. Like the
Right.
Atari was the thing in my house at the moment, and this was fantastic. I could ask him numbers and he'll be like, oh, try to guess my number. And I said, seven. It's like, no, it's lower. It's like, what about six? No, lower. And it would be a game. And I would make a game super quick. And that thing evolved. And I would watch the Olympic Games and I would start thinking about creating a javelin game. And it would just be the typical left, right, left, right, left, right. You push a button and you throw the thing. And then have no clue how to do the physics thing, and I'll ask my dad, and he'll just code that part, and then the whole thing will work for me. So that's like having a mentor
Hmm.
like that could actually walk me through it was such a lucky like moment in my life, and I just took the whole opportunity,
Yeah.
and I dived into it.
You said something key there. You said the word mentor and your father. Can you unpack that a little bit more for us? It seems like your father's had a pretty big impact on especially your youth. What are some valuable lessons that you learned from him, other than him, helping you kind of mold that love for computers? Any other things there you want to share as well?
Definitely. But both my dad and my mom, they were very studious people. They found the value, and I'm not talking about academics. My mom was really good in academics. My dad was not so much good in no, it's not so good. But the reality is that they were both studious. They will know the value of consuming information, having in your head, processing it, and then how that will change the way that you see life and how you appreciate life. So my dad loved history, a lot of very old history or relevant history. He would always be up to date in what was going on in the world, in different political systems and different conflicts or situations that were going in the world, and a very curious mind. He used to make model boats. He would program some stuff. He would He would cook like very particular dishes that he wanted to get to certain flavors. That kind of craftiness in different media, I would say that is what defined his way of expressing his art, I guess. He's an electrical engineer, so I had a very strong support for when he was topic science topics, math or physics, or my mom was a chemist. So I think I had those very strong support when it was about all the STEM or science, technology, engineering, and math kind of related fields. And I don't know, I was a very good student in those subjects, and both through school and college. That was kind of my strong suit.
Jim, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think, how about the love for computers, or any, I mean, I think the love for computers just came from your amazement of being able to program something and then getting the feedback from it, right? Any other things as a child that really you think influenced who you became as an adult, whether it be friends, continued family theme, or just experiences that you went through?
Yes. Oh, wow. I'll tell you a few experiences that I think were very impactful for me, like in a good way.
Awesome.
I was, I think I was lucky. You can hear me talk about luck, but I think I'm talking about those things that I did not control,
Right.
that I think that show up in my life, and then you just take them if you can. Sometimes you cannot, but guess that's what I'm describing as luck.
Right.
But I was lucky enough to spend several summers in Disney World in Orlando as a
Oh,
vacation. And I think that the first thing that you think about is how fun it is for a kid to be in such a place, and especially if you are into the Disney kind of stores and all that stuff, as we were. And I guess that's part number one. And I guess that's what our parents wanted, the special vacation and all the stories and memories. But the part that I'm referring to is, how does that work? The whole park, the monorail, the hotel, the everything. Where's the power comes from? Where's the water doing? How do they actually get those animatronics to move like that if we are in 1980 something? Like, this is, it's not the year 2000 when you've seen animatronics
Yeah.
being flown in the air like they do today.
right.
I'm talking about the the small world being unbelievable, that these things were hula dancing. I don't know if you've seen them, but it's like, it was unbelievable. It was just two strings and two little wires. But for me, it was fascinating how you could, from mini pieces, because I understood that that servo was the same servo in my remote control car that turned the thing.
Right.
And I
Yep.
understood that the same motor was there that I pulled apart and I couldn't put it back together, and the whole thing rattled with all the screws that I had extras, right? Like when you try to put back together a toy. And I was fascinated. I remember the carousel that you're going around this horse and there's a bent bar on the top. For me, that was so creative. How can you bend bar and make that translate the movement into a horse movement when there's no horse?
Right.
Really? And I think that there was a collection of those things. And in a day of Disney World, the Magic Kingdom, or Epcot Center, that was like supposed to be super edgy stuff. That's where you see video conferencing being portrayed as something that would happen.
Yeah.
And look at us. We're in
Right.
the three corners of the country, and we're having a conversation. And I'm sure somebody across the world can be looking at this, like watching this right now.
Right.
That was fake. So for me, I believe that. I believe the dream. I believe that that was what was going to happen, and I still believe it, and I'm seeing it, and I still have a ton of dreams that I'm hoping that are going to come through soon.
I mean, hence why you're in Web3 and interested in NFTs. I mean, it's just the future of that, and it's crazy to see. It's really interesting to me because most people that would reminisce about Disney, they would say your typical things. Oh, I like X character. It was just a feeling. It was happy. But you went that extra level to say, I was fascinated to see how it all worked. And that says a lot about Brian's young mind is already molding as an engineer and a computer and a maker and a creator, which is really cool to hear. You said you might have another experience as well. Was there something else you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think that one of the big challenges that I faced when I was in Venezuela was dealing with a very limited limited environment to develop a ton of technology, especially in software. Venezuela, even though it could have been, and Latin America right now is becoming a very strong player in the software world, where India had a huge advantage in terms of time, and they've built a massive industry around it. And in Venezuela, well, that was not happening. And then Venezuela went through a lot of very tough, challenging political and economic kind of
Mhm.
headwinds, let's call it, to not get
Mm-hmm.
into too many details. But it just created very few opportunities for somebody that was looking to. The way that I verbalized it back then in the 90s was I was not looking to operate a VHS, I was looking to build a VHS for somebody else to
Right.
operate it.
Right.
VHS, I'm talking about the video reproducing device that back in the day that we used to use to play tapes and movies. And for me, that was the biggest difference. I can install a system, I can put together a computer, but I want to build a chip inside the NVIDIA GPU and control the transistors are there. That's what I want to build. And then somebody can play Half-Life 3 on it if you get it. But I'm not passionate about the integration and the application at the integration layer. I wanted to go deeper. And that's kind of what made it very hard for me in Venezuela. And I think that created this obsession with I am going to overcome all these challenges and I'm going to figure out techniques and strategies to overcome this challenge. And there are combinations from kind of creating your own opportunities within the bubble as you could. And that brought me to immigrating to the States. I went to Boston University for my master's degree in electrical engineering again. And that's kind of how I started my career in the US after I immigrated.
See,
Gotcha.
you did a masterful job of continuing to open and unpack that youth. We started very short, but we're getting deeper and deeper, and that all does make sense. And um, I think what you talked
Well,
about there too is a little bit of entrepreneurship mindset. Is there anything else in your youth that helped you? Because you mentioned you built a company and sold it. Is there anything else in that childhood that has influenced that kind of maker in entrepreneurship mindset as well?
Yes, definitely. I think that a lot of the first maker comes from the software development. The fact that I was building software, it just gave me so much possibilities into what you could build that I think that I was always hungry for all the possibilities that this tool could create. And I was hungry to find what that was. And throughout my life, I've been starting businesses. A lot of them, my friends will make fun of my businesses, but I guess that's the group of haters that you always get. But
yeah.
the reality is that I've been always trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out a Craigslist kind of equivalent at some point, or an eBay kind of equivalent back in the day. I used to do a lot of in Latin America, soccer is a really big thing, especially when the World Cup comes up. So I remember building with a friend a system for organizing a poll tracking, kind of like a fantasy slash poll March Madness equivalent kind of concept, but for the World Cup. And we just kind of took a lot of kind of participation fees, and we paid prices, and we created a whole experience around the World Cup. And I got a chance to kind of build a system that it was able to email every single person a personalized result of where they're standing, what are the games that are coming up, what are the odds of the game based on all the people that are participating, and how they're tracking as the tournament is going, and what are their odds of succeeding or not. So it became this place where I had all this data, and I could create more and more experiences out of adding code to,
Mm.
you wouldn't believe it, we built it in Excel. The whole thing was built within an Excel spreadsheet. And the whole thing would send emails from Excel, and we just made it work. And it was
That's
super fun to
crazy.
connect those
Hmm.
things. Um,
Okay. That's wild. That is
that's what I
wild.
did. Yeah.
Maddie, go ahead. I'm sure you have some questions and
Well, a couple
thoughts.
couple things. One, I love that you said Excel because I remember in college at the time for me, we did a lot of things in Excel, and I used to think, why are we using Excel? And then when you start learning that there's this own language within Excel, it's like actually a ridiculously powerful tool that most people just use for spreadsheets. and you can do all kinds of stuff with Excel. It's really wild. It's got its own language. Well, it's not, but you know what I'm saying. It's a very powerful tool that you can use, and it's just cool. It's cool to hear that. Here's my question: growing up in Venezuela, um, you were talking about some of the challenges that exist there, but I think also because you were born in the '80s, Mike and I were born in the '80s. Venezuela 80s isn't Venezuela 2023. You know, a lot of people think of Venezuela now when you think of how it is economically and whatnot. But, you know, for a long time, honestly, I mean, with the oil industry that was there was a lot of prosperity there. I mean, you're talking about having a Radio Shack computer, you know what I mean, where and being able to learn from that as a kid. I'd love to hear just your experience of seeing that transition and how that impacted you as well, because I think that different cultures, as you said when you were talking about language, you know, we find different ways to communicate, but also just the cultures themselves that we're immersed in really shape who we are and our drive and what we're going after. And I'd love to hear your take from that growing up in Venezuela, and then getting exposed to things like Disney in Orlando, which, by the way, isn't even an American thing, right? Disney, it's its own entity. Like, everybody is fascinated how Disney does what they do. But being able to like see kind of both ends of that, I'd be curious to hear your take on it.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Let me try to give a little bit more breaks to the 2023 and 1980s Venezuela
Sure.
story, because I think that it's very popular. Like, once the Titanic hit the iceberg, and that's the moment that a lot of people join and watch that season, but you didn't see, or they never produced movie like one, two, three, or
Love
first and
that
second.
Exactly.
analogy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's hear
So
it.
I'll tell you a little bit about how this whole thing wound up and what that meant for folks, without getting into a lot of details, because I think that this is like an appreciation of somebody that has immigrated from the country. So of course I'm going to have some bias towards
Sure.
my decision yielded me leaving the country, and there's some other folks
Sure.
that have never done that for different reasons that I totally respect and might also share. But the reality is that the going to Disney World, I think, is an indication that I was kind of growing up in a family that had a lot of opportunities, and this is an international trip to Disney World. Might not be a road trip to Disney World. I had to fly on a plane because I was coming from South America, and hotels and all that expensive stuff that would happen. So I consider it a luxury that my parents were able to afford back then. Now, when it comes to the kind of the story of Venezuela, there is a very impactful change that happened in 1983, where the very first moment that there's a massive economic change in how the system works. And we go from the international trade being very healthy between Venezuela and other countries to it starting to float on a little bit more of a free way, that it would now ebb and flow as the situation improved and deteriorated. Before, kind of the basket was actually under control and it could be kept kind of stable. So that is the very first point where things start changing. And I don't live that part that much. I'm very young by that time. And those when the challenges start happening. It is around 1992 where there is, oh wow, you're gonna find this funny. The Silicon Valley Bank thing that happened a week ago
Yeah,
or so.
it's happening
yeah.
right now. They just tried to get
Yes.
bailed out by billions, but that didn't seem to help out.
Well, there you go. And then you have first the other bank was a Signature Bank, and there's a Credit Suisse.
Yep.
Got a UBS to kind of bottom recently. I lived through that in Venezuela in 1992. Around, I don't know, maybe 80% of the banks in Venezuela completely collapsed, and everybody's is holding on the FDIC equivalent that exists in Venezuela, trying to get their money back. Granted that some of these banks are highly insolvent and are really, really bad positions. And a lot of people will not be able to recoup their money because their money doesn't really exist. It was just recorded somewhere, and the same way the Silicon Valley Bank could have yielded no returns for all their depositors, that luckily I believe they all might get everything. That was not the case that happened in Venezuela. So, and that is 1992, way before 1998, when Chavez comes into power. That is where the next big change happens. It is from those 2 points where the economy starts getting very rocky, and there's a lot of things that are not progressing as well as it was for my family, or the way that they were making money and all those challenges. So that is when I started noticing the changes from the Disney World trip couldn't be afforded, or some things were not be like that, or if you want to acquire certain goods, they would have to be imported instead of being available in the mall. Like you could buy a TV or like a video game or whatever. I started noticing those things. They were the only ones that mattered to me as a kid, I guess. By the time I become a professional, I graduated from college as an electrical engineer, and I started working at Procter and Gamble, like a Fortune 500 company, a Fortune 100 company. It's a very, very large company, and I was well paid. I was making good money, and I could not afford a place to live. And I was like, "That this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Like I'm an employee producing a lot of value for a lot of people, and this is not working for me." And I could never crack that relationship between the value that I thought that I could produce and the value that I was getting compensated given the situations and the macroeconomic challenges. And that's where the kind of this dream that I always had about getting a master's degree, furthering my education, and kind of exploring an economy that was much more aligned with my passion for technology and growth. That's what brought me to Boston. In the case, that's where I moved first when I moved to the States.
Dude,
Love it.
fascinating. Maddie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great breakdown, and I think really the essence is, because we could talk we could talk for the next 8 hours about the intricacy of like the influences and the political influences that affected all these things globally and within your own country. I think what's important, what was really important for I think people to hear out of that though is that, as you said, right, it's not just the iceberg moment, right? There's a lot of these things don't happen in this time. There's a lot of stuff that has to occur, and a lot of things that have to move for this situation to occur the way it is, but it does affect everyone. And to your point, what do you do? It's not just somebody who's, well, I'm just going to live at home with mom and dad, not have a job, and boo hoo, there's not enough money. It's like, you had a degree, you're an electrical engineer, you're working for a massive company, you're doing good work, you're getting paid, and you can't sustain yourself. Something is wrong when that occurs. And by the way, and this happens globally all the time, and ebbs and flows, by the way. And I mean, America's famous for its depression, right? I mean, in terms of this same exact thing, and of course the crash. So anyway, I just think that's a really interesting thing, because my grandmother grew up through the depression, and was like one of those, she's passed away now, but I distinctly remember this distrust of the banks that she had, and like, no, 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 you hold on to your money, because if you give it to somebody else, it doesn't mean anything. That can go away. And it doesn't matter that it's FDIC insured and things like that. It's just, she had this, that influence was there. She was always like, you have to have a garden, because you don't know. You may go to the grocery store one day and there's nothing there. Like, you may have to make your own food. And that mentality was wild to me growing up, because I'm thinking, what do you mean? You just go down to the grocery store? And I almost laughed at it. And now as an adult, I look back and I'm thinking, this is a product of what she went through growing up and why she is. And I think that a lot of people need to hear that. I think it's interesting how those stories affect us, because it really does. And it brought you to where you're at now. And I think that there's something to be said for that. I think it's really fascinating. What do you think, Mike?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm having an allergy attack myself. That's why I keep on itching my eye.
There we go.
The trials and tribulations of being a redhead. I'm allergic to everything in life.
So, Brian,
No,
did you play any sports? Did you play soccer? Did you?
Yeah, yeah. I play soccer. I was not really good at it, but I played. I played that. I'm a swimmer. I like swimming. And I've done a lot of sports. I did sports shooting, the Olympic shooting, the one that you shoot against the
Okay.
tiger. I did a little
Yeah.
bit of that when I was in college and an undergrad. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I like running. That's what I do as an adult. I like running. I've run a marathon, a half a marathon. I'm hopefully gonna run a few more, but that is my
dude,
current sport when I do one.
more power to your knees, brother. If you can do it, keep on going, man.
One day last, right?
Yeah.
No,
Right.
I was actually gonna take that moment because I think it was a really good moment. I definitely want to revisit the impacts of you going through that over the years, on obviously your thoughts on crypto, NFTs, that whole ecosystem probably is one of the reasons you're attracted to it too, is you've seen what bad economies can do to a um, big community and ecosystem. But if Maddie, if you don't have any other questions about the childhood, I think you did a really good segue into, hey, going through these things really made me realize, hey, I want to get my master's, work on my professional career, and get to a new place that
Yeah.
rewards entrepreneurship, drive, all the things that you're yearning for. Before we go there, Maddie, do you have any other final thoughts on the childhood?
No, I think it was great. I loved hearing it, and I want to let's get into episode 2 and start talking about the professional career. I mean, most of the accolades I said in the very beginning were all things that would be in episode 2, and I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, and take us through there. I think you were talked about you ended up in Boston, but I think one of the things and the themes as you go through this is to think about, because you made this transition, what opportunities do you think happened compared to if you would have stayed where you were growing up? I'm interested to hear that theme as we walk through your episode 2. So take it away, man.
Perfect. Let me tell you a little bit about how that goes. But let's go back to the comment of my parents being very studious. I guess that's the first thing
Yeah.
that comes in. So I guess that's where the idea that I was going to college was implanted in my head, and I never thought about not going. But it was the master's opportunity that showed up as a way of hardening some skills, and I always thought it was a great opportunity to just keep going. And I think it would be. I'm sure that in a few years we will regard masters as a good place to stop, in the sense that maybe college sometimes can leave some people a little bit hungry for a little bit more. So I don't think that is going to be unusual for people to go a little bit farther. In my case, I've been learning about computers for a very long time in a completely unstructured way. I've been reading books. I taught myself a few languages that my dad didn't manage, like C++ and those kind of lower level languages. And eventually I got to a point that when I was applying for college, I had a chance to talk with a few people that were graduating from computer science, and in that conversation their consensus was, do not study computer science. You will be a waste of your time. You should pick something else, because you're going to be retaking stuff that you already know. Like, you feel it. It's like going to an art class to learn the basics when you already have figured out a lot what you like and you're really good. I guess that's the recommendation. I have no clue if they were right or wrong. I've never taken computer science classes, and I can realize all the knowledge that I do not have about,
Right.
I don't know, discrete math and some other stuff. But the reality is that I picked electrical engineering because it was the next thing that was between the computer and the ground. So for me, that was like, okay, then I'm going to figure out the rest. In theory, I'll be able to learn from the plug on the wall all the way to the pixels on the screen and how they happen. And then I will really understand this thing. And that's what I went electrical engineering. And electrical engineering is nothing about computers. It's nothing.
You learned the hard way, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I blame all those computer science students that recommended me go that way. But it was a great challenge, and kind of learning something as involved and as detailed as electrical engineer can get to, and how varied some of the topics that you can expose yourself once you get the fundamentals and you're kind of getting to your seniors and electives and all those things. I think that's where it rounded my understanding of how computers did what I was asking them to do, but to the very detail. And I think when I program thinking about the electronics. I don't program about the language and trying to write a for loop or trying to write a function. I am actually seeing that I'm controlling the transistors, and I'm controlling the processor, and I'm controlling these other components. Every time that I make an assignment, I know the RAM is getting involved or the cache is getting involved. I love that. And understanding it at that point, I think it gave me a better understanding of all the possibilities, because that's what it is with this technology. It's a hammer and a nail, but you can make a boat, you can make a chair, you can make a house. You can do anything you want with the same tool. So for me, that was the first two-dimension exploration, and I guess that's a pattern for me. It's like there's always two things that are going to be explored in parallel for them to be combined into like a solid instead of like a line, instead of like a plane. I like to always go like that. That's a Procter and Gamble electrical engineer for me was that. I'm going to learn everything that I didn't learn in college when I worked on more marketing and consumer stuff. But then it comes to the immigration to the U.S. The immigration to the U.S. is yet again another one because I need to now learn a new culture. Now my life switches to English, and even though I knew enough English when I came to the States, there's nothing that can prepare you for 24 hours straight of another language. And I landed in Boston, so there's another language on top of the English
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
speak
there
there.
is.
So I needed to learn that as well. And it was exhausting from headaches every day and those kind of things that your body just can't take the extra work. Remember that I couldn't on TV, when they were talking on TV, the anchor, the news anchor will talking on TV, and I could see their mouth and I could totally understand what they were saying. But they would cut to a B-roll or something panning the street, and I couldn't see the person talking. And the voice was not enough. The sound was not enough for me to understand what they were saying.
Interesting.
It was
And
too
that's just
muddled,
because
too
of their
fast,
accent and just how thick the accent was?
or how much information you actually get from lips when you're actually
Mhm.
listening to somebody. It is when you are not good, the mouth is giving you a lot of indication of what the letters might be and when a pause is happening
Right.
and when it's different parts of the mouth being used. And so I
Interesting.
don't know. It's you do read lips much more than you think you do. I
Yeah,
guess that
no,
was my thinking.
absolutely. I never thought about that, but that's fascinating insight.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that was another opportunity, knowing Spanish, knowing English, knowing a couple of cultures,
Sure.
and very different cultures. The American culture is a culture of a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of possibilities. Um, I I think, or at least I believed back then, that a lot of hard work will get you a lot of results. But there is a reality that America is a very wealthy place in general. Like, because we all walk on the same streets, and the streets are fantastic compared to the ones that I grew up. Like the infrastructure, the drainage, the ADA access to rent, all that stuff doesn't
Mhm.
exist in any other places.
Yeah.
So the wealth of this country creates a few entitlements in a good way, but entitlements to, well, the street must be appropriate, or like my car is not going to be jacked in every single place I leave it, like those kind of things that I did not enjoy, that I did not have. I did not have those entitlements. So, I could work a ton much more than my peers because I was an immigrant. I had a lot to lose, and they didn't. They didn't have that much to lose. But then there's a lot of dynamics about how you justify work in a Latin country. How do you identify value in an American society, and how those two match? They have a way of matching where what you consider a lot of work, what you consider appropriate work, is not too much for you, but it's a lot for the receiver, and the economy kind of values that kind of work a ton. And I actually fall on that perfect balance where the amount of work, the type of work, the way that you relate in different cultures actually just landed really well with the communities that I joined, and I think that gave me an advantage or an
Mhm.
edge.
That
I
is
like that.
a fascinating insight. Can you unpack that just a little bit more into the fact of um, America, obviously, you're gonna get still compensated pretty well if you work 24/7, but there's a flip side to everything, right? You can burn yourself out. Whereas it seems like in other countries, the work life balance is more uh, premium, and then maybe not as much work gets done. I don't know. What are your thoughts there on kind of the work ethic you saw from growing up in South America to what you saw in America? And then that's question one. And then question two is how you yourself as being an immigrant and talking about working maybe a little harder. How do you balance that?
Now let me start with the first question. Yes, let me fine tune something. I don't think that it's an American culture or a Venezuelan culture. I guess maybe that was not the right words to use.
Okay.
I think that there is some some ways that that both communities work and what they value and what they lack in the larger sense. And I think that both cultures make it in a way that what one of them might not value too much or consider too much of a challenge will be valued very greatly on the other one. And and what I mean is that my definition of balance when I was younger was not the same one as my peers when I joined when I came to the US. Not, I mean, this is a general statement. There was a lot of people that were actually with the same or even more tolerance to value producing hours, I guess. And I think that I found myself in a position where I could use what I considered was enough, like appropriate effort, an appropriate time, an appropriate use of my hours towards a certain goal, and I will always outpace the other group. And I would outpace in the amount of value that I was creating. And it was a little bit less of me being stronger or smarter or anything like that. It was that I did not have the balance that this culture called for. I had the balance that the culture in Latin America called for, and I felt completely imbalanced. But as I become an American citizen and I become part of this culture, I start realizing of all the other things that were completely out of the picture in Venezuela. They were never accessible because they are like second or third level benefits that come once you
I
actually
see
have
what you're saying. I see what you're
this.
saying. So
Yeah,
actually,
you
the
have
luxuries afforded here might create more complacency for people as well.
exactly
Yeah.
in a sense that I would not see it as I could out. Yes, I guess that's a good word. Like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
complete.
I mean, yeah, there's
It's a
nothing.
completely possibility, I guess, possibility, and it does happens in large numbers, and I guess other
Right.
folks can take advantage if you somehow want to sacrifice that. I guess that now I'm older, I'm wiser, and I realize kind of the price that you pay for that effort and the lack of work balance. But let's say that I was coming from an expectation of work balance this bad, and this is kind of where America was. And while I was tuning to it, everything that was below was extra value that people were perceiving for me, that for
Right.
me felt like Wednesday. And while you land that plane on a stable version that I am today, that is a little bit more congruent with like most of the American folks, I think that I milk that, but I don't think that is something that I would recommend or I would plan. I just thought that I just thought that I had just more stamina. I was just
Yeah.
not bothered by
Right. But you're
by it.
also, I mean, another way to say what you're saying is the truth of reality is, um, you have to grind to be successful and to make things happen for you. And there's always those fears of like, when I have a kid, I don't want to give them too much because they need to figure out how to work for themselves, because there is that part of culture in America of people that just have too much money and then they don't do anything. Um, but even to your point, which I think is interesting, is that we say kind of the middle class of this country, their norm is still extremely luxurious to other parts compared to other parts in the world, right? Um, and
Well,
you seeing that and seeing those differences, that's where that gap was made in the difference, which is really interesting. Maddie, any thoughts there? Because I love how I love how you brought that up, Brian, because it's something we don't think about a lot too, because everything's normalized, right? It's the same difference of take it out of socioeconomic stuff. I was born in DC. Maddie and I grew up around DC. Everyone's
yeah,
like, oh, I love going to DC because you got all the museums and everything's free and the nation's capital there. But by fifth grade, and you've gone there 45 times, you're like, I don't really care. This is where I grew up. It's not interesting to me. Same
yeah,
difference, just in different context, right?
You're totally right, and I'll give you the flip side and the tropical weather and what the cost of fruit is and the cost of gas that I used to budget $30 of gas a year. A year. That was my yearly budget for gas for my car, and I will do 500 miles a week.
Right.
A year. It's nothing. It's cheaper than water. So there's so many things. And if you retire in that country, you'll probably have a blast.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you're not used to having in the
Yeah.
States that you will be
Well,
so enthralled. But by fifth grade, I was already used to them.
Right.
I wanted, and
Exactly.
I wanted the
yeah.
other ones. So
Well, we
I
get used to whatever we're around, but it's also interesting too because there's a lot more than just even stuff, right? For example, work ethic in itself changes. I remember getting my degree in aerospace engineering and my first job at an aerospace engineering company. And my boss sat me down. He's like, okay, you do all the normal things you get used to for the job. And in my mind, I was used to crunching through these crazy credit hour semesters, just doing everything I could to just make sure I pass, make sure I do well, make sure I can get a job offer. I was hustling a lot. And then all of a sudden, you look around, and most of these people would just kind of go in their office. And I didn't know that the norm in corporate America was you get coffee and check email for the first hour. So I worked the first hour, you know what I'm saying? And then I didn't know that at lunch you kind of wind things down for half an hour. You go to lunch, then you wind things up and you talk to some people and you have a meeting with your boss at some point in time or some chit chat. And then, oh, well, we're getting close to quitting time. Let's wind it back down. It's like people were doing 2 hours of work, but in my mind, I was like, I'm here, I'm being paid for 8 hours of work. So I did 8 hours of work. So what happened is by Wednesday, I was done all of the things I was assigned to do. I remember my boss being like, well, that was like what I had for your first whole month here, you know? He wasn't expecting because of these shifts. And to your point, like to you, it was just normal. But that's what my normal was, trying to just finish, get a degree and then going out into corporate America. I think that the same thing to your point, Mike, about Washington, D.C. I'll tell you the other thing that we got used to at Washington, D.C. There's a lot of federal money there. And so what happens is uh, tremendous amount of tax dollars get funneled through there and then have to be spent or they won't be appropriated the next year. And guess where they all live? Right in those surrounding neighborhoods. There's Bethesda's, there's Montgomery counties, right? So like you can be a painter in Montgomery County and you're driving a Mercedes. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the money is there. So people get paid for not just doing something, but even just for putting your car, like as long as your foot's on the pedal, it doesn't matter if you're in gear or not, you'll get paid in areas like that, right? Most of the world, if you're not in gear, no one cares that you have your foot on the gas because you get paid for a product, right? You have to produce. And I think that's a really big difference too culturally because I'm shocked at how many people are just kind of used to a status quo. Like, what do you mean? I showed up here and I clocked out when I was supposed to leave. Pay me. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't do what you're paid to do. And so I think that work ethic can be different. What are your thoughts on that in terms of that and the difference?
I agree with that, and I want to kind of add a few caveats there. I think it's a two-sided coin, and
Sure.
it's a very hard
Absolutely.
topic in a
Yeah.
sense that I have a feeling that I mean, all those benefits that you're describing, I think are very, like a lot of work for a lot of people, generations behind us.
For
They put
sure.
a ton of effort, and their result has been stored as value that I would call wealth from now on in different parts. So you have a
Sure.
wealthy community because of results that have decisions that have made in the past, and I think very hardworking communities, very hardworking population in general, and I think that that is the important part. It's like
Yeah.
this is results of wealth, and I believe that the community is entitled to enjoy that benefit and to move
Yeah.
forward with it and actually like trampoline or like jump on off
Sure.
from above
Like a
that.
momentum.
Yes. What I think is challenging at that point that every single wealth building or wealth usage will actually take away some of the pain and challenge or hardships or
Hmm.
opportunities to grow, whatever you want to call them, that come from pushing, like doing push-ups or like trying to bench press. If you put more weight or the weight is appropriate, you will create this situation in your muscles that if you have the right appropriate rest and the right nutrition, you will have stronger muscles that could actually push more weight up. And if you do this thing in the right order and the right cycles,
Yeah.
you will maximize what a human can push. And if that actually delivers value to you, you will deliver that value. So
Sure.
it's those combinations that are very delicate. If you have to
Yep.
make your own weights out of bags with dirt, it's super hard. If you go to a gym which is well lit and like an air condition, all that stuff, you will do it faster. And I think
Sure.
that's the benefit of wealth from either a country or an individual. And I think that that is why kind of countries are doing a little bit better. They keep doing better because they keep investing that wealth into enabling their
Sure.
communities to produce more. So that is the first belief that I have. Now,
I agree. I agree. Provided that the motivation is to lift at the gym, the well at gym, not just to be standing in the well at gym.
that is the problem. That is a problem. That then you have somebody that comes in that has been trying to pack dirt to make their own weights, and they walk into the gym and they take advantage of the machine in a way that you've never seen it because
Exactly.
you have decided not to put that much. I'm not saying that everyone in the gym behaves like that. There's
No,
people that will get the most out of the machine regardless of where they were
Absolutely.
born. And if they have 100 machines in their house, there's good people like that. But I think that there's a lot of effort that you have to put in to let
Yeah.
go of a lot of your comforts in order
Yeah.
to expose yourself to the growing opportunity.
That's
Some people have the option of choosing not to do the growing
Correct.
opportunity. I felt like I
Right.
didn't have the option to choose that path, and that brought a lot of benefit while I got some of my behaviors a little bit under control, the ones that were unhealthy, and then some others that I'm also victim of the comfort that I get from certain benefits and wealth, and then that actually can take me away from growing opportunities that I would like to pursue.
right.
So I'm a victim of it
Love
as
it.
well.
Dude, fascinating conversation, and I love it. I think we could talk about this for hours on end.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
you
Love
have
that stuff.
a pretty awesome career, and I do want to just touch on that a little bit before we get into Web3, because believe it or not, we've already talked for over an hour, and we still got a lot to go. So, Procter and Gamble, we've got Herbal Essence commercials. You help build Microsoft Teams. Take us through kind of your highlight reel of your career, things you learned, mentors you might have met that kind of really helped mold your mindset into selling a company and trying to create a Web3 project.
Perfect. Let's start with my dad. My dad started a business when I was younger. He was running his own construction company with a few friends, and for me it was common to hear the challenges and the wins and the losing, the opportunities that were, I don't know, for me it was normal. My mom had a job. She worked at a university. She was a teacher. So I had both opportunities to see what a business owner was and a little bit more traditional employee could be. And I think I took very good image of both of those paths. So I think that was the first thing that made me think that I could start a business if I wanted to. Then after college I went to Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble, for me, I'm an electrical engineer, and I went to marketing and consumer research. And for me it was very eye-opening, all the soft skills that exist behind a business. That in my case I was doing a lot of math-based skills in college with science and electronics and all those topics that were very science driven. So for me, the picking the right words, how to actually communicate emotions, and what is the decision making that happening, how does the decision making process happens in the head of a human, the information gathering, the comparisons, and eventually you have all these hormones that get together to the point that you actually decide to part with your money. And then you have all these other experiences that happens when you consume the product and talk about it with other people. So for me, it was fascinating how finances worked, how logistics worked, how HR worked, and how marketing worked. And that had nothing to do with what I was doing before. So for me, that was the best part about that job. After Procter & Gamble, I went go my master's degree. My master's degree is in electrical engineering again. So I'm not doing marketing anymore. I'm not doing anything that is words related. And now I am analyzing papers and writing Fourier transform and multi-dimensional analysis and stuff. And it was awesome. I loved it. I did a lot of vision, computer vision, and works on digital signal processing. And I did a lot of early AI work about hypotheses, and AI systems that had hypotheses and they had to prove them. And I remember studying a lot about Parkinson's because we had a project about Parkinson's and how your brain waves control your muscles and how they start not working as expected, and Parkinson's spasm attacks that start happening or episodes. So for me, that was one of another opportunities that you can combine this medical field with electrical engineering and signal processing, and you can make sense out of it. So for me, that was the opportunity where I realized that I was not meant to solve one problem. It's just a matter of finding the right problem, finding the right solution, and then once you marry them, I can see a ton of fun things happening, a lot of good challenge, a lot of puzzles showing up. That was the experience for me in Boston University in the school. And then I went to Microsoft. That was awesome. I always wanted to work for Microsoft as a kid. I kept seeing Microsoft everywhere and everything that I was playing with or touching when I was a kid. And I got a chance. It was pretty cool. I worked for Microsoft for 4 years. It was a good stint. I got a chance to work on some of their cool video conferencing technologies, a lot of low-level programming, C++, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and that's the first time that I really get paid for coding. 20 years after I learned how to code,
Yeah.
and that was awesome. I really liked that job. Um, and like every growing opportunity, you're growing, you're learning, and then there's a moment where you don't feel like you're learning as much as you used to. And then going back to the comment about being studious because of my parents, when I'm not learning, I think that there's something wrong because I'm always like today, I'm enjoying everything that I've studied in the past in this conversation and everything that I'm doing right now. So in a month or two, I can't have the same conversation again. Like that wouldn't make any sense. So
Correct.
there's some things that need to be learned from here to then, because if not, I don't feel like I'm doing what my family does, what we do, kind of thing as a family.
Yeah.
So I have that drive, and I guess that's what I saw in Microsoft, and that brought me to starting my business with a few other co-founders. We started the business, and it was Bevy Up. It was the name of the company, and that was a company that I started with some friends on the styling business, and we were providing collaboration tools for salespeople and customers, or personal stylist tools, if you will, and it was a fantastic experience going from 0 to 1, like having nothing
There you go. 0 to 1. Good
for
book.
you. Yeah, really good book. Really good book. It is a very good description of what happens, but and it was a great thing. We started from zero. We started hiring people and started building the software from a blank sheet, and eventually we started getting our first customers, our first employees, and wow, I mean, when we sold the company 5 years, 6 years after, we were like a 20-something people team when we were acquired, and we were distributed across the world. We had people in New Zealand, we had people in South America, we had people in the US. Most of us were in the US, but we had a distributed team with some other great folks that we had in our network that were part of the venture. And
That's awesome.
that was the last thing before I sold it to Nordstrom. And then let me tell you about Nordstrom to wrap it
So,
up, and you can do some questions.
so real quick though,
So much
before
in there.
Nordstrom,
So much to
yeah, a
unpack.
lot. I want to
Yes,
go
it is.
back to all the way to your desire to understand how Disney worked, from how they get power, how they get water, how the animatronics work. I find it interesting that that desire was there even as a child, and then here you are now at Procter and Gamble, and you're learning something completely outside of your career field in terms of not career field, but your area of study, right?
Mhm.
But yet you're fascinated by it, learning about the marketing, learning about the words, learning about how finances work, how HR works, right? You're learning the Disney. You're learning how Procter and Gamble was doing it. And then I thought it was interesting because then as you moved to Microsoft, you were doing that as well. You were absorbing all of these processes. Do you feel like that was a large part in what equipped you when you decided to start your own venture and go 0 to 1? Learning all of those soft skills and actual skills too. I mean, actual hard skills too, um, prepared you for that. Is that
Very
something?
much so. Very much. Have you seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
Mhm.
You know the
Yeah.
template of the show of the movie without telling what the movie is about. Is that during the game they're asking questions and the breaks to the story about how he knows the answer to that question, and kind
Right.
of there's a fantastic story behind
Yep.
that information, right? Like
Yep.
Smith and Wesson,
Yep.
whatever. I think I remember seeing that exact thing in my head when I was in my business and I would face this situation that I would have. And I was like, what is this? What would be the right answer? And I would immediately go back to that conversation in Procter and Gamble in that room with this person and this other person when they said this. And they taught me that you communication has these two layers. And when you
Yep.
communicate things, there's things you say and there's things that you did not say. And the things that you did not say are as clear as the ones that you did say. And that for me was such a big insight. And I didn't know it. And I've used that. And I remember having those flashbacks of moments where you just remember exactly when you learned that skill and you turn around, you use it on the spot, and it's the right answer. And you get the point.
It's a massive revelation because, especially coming from the technical side, something that curses engineers, mathematicians, physicists, is we get bogged down by the language of math and science. And it's frustrating when somebody doesn't just see it logically because there's a clear-cut answer, right? I don't need to talk about emotions when I do math because the answer is there and it's clear. And it's emotional or any of the other nuances is outside of that. It's a very objective black and white issue, right? But the world is not like that. And you certainly can't sell a product that's like that, right? And so learning about herbal, what a crazy transition from coding and electrical engineering and servos to how do I convince a woman to buy a shampoo? You know, what are the emotions that she goes through that makes her want to buy, that makes her feel that she's purchasing a right product, that she's going to talk about with her friends in a positive way? You know, there's a tremendous amount that goes into that. This is Mike's world, by the way. That's what Mike is a genius at. And it's like it's really cool to see those worlds collide. And it's just really cool to see that you got both of those things because you realize how much you don't know when you're exposed to it. It's really fascinating. I think that's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I would, because the term soft skills is a very broad range, right? And going through that, because I have, midlife is the first kind of like true entrepreneurship bug thing I've finally bit on. I've had 1,000 ideas, Maddie, I'll tell you that, but I never followed through on any of them. And I've been in corporate America my whole life, and I went through those huge companies like you did too. Um, any of the soft skills in particular that you learned, whether it be communication, leadership, management, anything that you think really helped you out in your entrepreneurship, 0 to 1, or anything just in general that is top of mind for you or think critical to you for being successful?
Definitely. Let me tell you what Maddie was saying. Like I think it's the first one that I think of is that the world is black. It's not black and white. The world is gray, and most likely you don't want to be either black or white. You want to be a gray. There's so many grays, and a lot of those grays are good grays. There's some grays that are too dark and too bright because they're getting close to the whites, and the blacks are not real. They don't really exist. So I think that was the biggest thing. I was, like Maddie said, like exposed to the technology, to the fact that I add up two numbers and they will give me the answer, and you do the same and it will give you the same. But ask somebody else to put two things together and they're not going to do it exactly the same way. And there are right answers. They put it together. That works. It checks off the box of it did. So for me, it's like the understanding that duality and always applying both. I don't think that you need to stop being an engineer or try to be creative. No, just
Exactly.
make it both. It's humans. That's who you are. Actually, most likely you just have one side of your experience that you need to keep nurturing because there's people that are doing it, and it's very human. We communicate without numbers. We touch each
Yep.
other. We eat food, and there's very few numbers involved. I mean, definitely
Yep.
there's some recipes. So for me, that is the big thing. That is the core of a business, because I think the true thing about a business is finding this thing that the other person needs, wants, or desires. And they're so convinced that you have the right thing that they're going to part with something that they feel is equal value. But it's not equal value because you're making money out of it.
Right.
But they think it's equal value in a sense that, and not even that I'm taking advantage of you. If I make you think that this is even more value, and you come back and you tell me this gave me this much value, and I was able to create that value for much less, who created that gap value in the middle? It's me. I am the one that created that value. Without me, you would have had this thing, and you wouldn't have had your thing satisfied. I am that thing. We are that thing, that team, or we as a product company or whatever it is. That is what I'm fascinated. That if you create those, you're just now giving people value. And what is better than give value to a community? That's kind of what, I don't know, that's the deal that I signed up for. Like, I'll give value. And if I can give you a ton of it, then we will all have that wealth laying around. It happens that a ton of it comes back to my pocket, and I like that. But the reality is that you just push it out really, really, really hard, and it just comes back, especially when it's software. You just push it out once, and it just pushes out really hard on its own. And for me, that is such a hack in a way that I can contribute to society very effectively in putting this very intense work, creating that value, and then have that value reap through society as people just get it, consume it, transform it, whatever it is. And I just have to sit back and just, that thing is going to go for hundreds of years. I can die and it's going to keep going. And for me, that is what I'm feeling right here. And everything else in my life just keeps working and works really well.
Good. It's a great insight. I love the grace. I love how you describe that. I love the idea of duality in that sense too. But you just touched on something that's really important, which is value, right? Because you can do what you said and work really hard and pump stuff out, pump stuff out, pump stuff out. But if you're not creating value, that actually can end in insanity. Can you talk about how you determine value, or what value means to you, and how you evolve the value in your entrepreneurship world?
Very, very good question. And I don't think that I am as good as I would like to be in identifying when activities drive value or my actions deliver value. I think that I am probably quite wasteful like other people, but I I think that there's a big difference between actions and value, and I think that they're not correlated in the information workers world where I live in. I do not live in a world where your physical actions produce value. I don't move stuff, I don't move boxes, I don't drive cars or transportation. If you're a truck driver, the hours that you're driving the truck are the hours that you're producing value, right? And it's very direct. And I think that in the information workers world, where is information the one that you're transforming and creating value, is where it doesn't correlate. I can write a really bad email and send it to you and spend hours on it, and you will not reply back, or you will not get the result that I want. But there's no way that you spend 5 hours on the truck will not get there. Like, once you've started the journey, the challenges that you're going to face, yeah, definitely a truck is a very, very risky job, to be honest, and there's a lot of challenges. But most of the humans that drive trucks will be able to get it there, but not most of the humans that write emails are going to write it one that is good. So I think that is a big risk with information workers. There's so many wrong options that you can pick, so many wrong answers that are still an email that you can still send. It's a document that you can still print, or it's a marketing campaign that you can launch. But the reality is that might not be value generating. So for me, the biggest problem is identifying is where it's not so much the value that you produce, is where the value gets perceived and labeled as valuable. Because actually you don't get to label it as valuable. You only do actions. You take actions and somebody else labels it as valuable.
Yeah.
So I think that the trick is to not believe that you are entitled to know the answer of what's going to be valuable. I just sit down and I ask you, how would you find this conversation valuable? And you tell me, let's talk about these things in the podcast. And we are going to do it. And that's what you are going to find valuable, because you just told me that that's what you find valuable. I'm not making it up. I don't need to make it up. I don't need to invent it. I'm just going to tell you what you need.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the value that you are asking me to do it, especially because I believe that I have it right now and I can give you that value. But I think you have to be humble enough to know that you're not the one that gets to determine it. It's just only you get to.
No, it's
ask.
another beautiful way to say it. In our community, I want to put this in before Matt, because I know Matt has something to say. One of our community members said you could provide insane value if you had a side career with audiobooks on tape, because your voice is insanely soothing. And I will agree with that as well.
That is true. You got that baritone, man. You gotta run with that.
Maddie, go ahead.
Here's something I think that's interesting about that, because this is something that I've studied a lot in my journey in entrepreneurship. And Mike says it, and I think the simplest way to say it is if you want to make money, solve a problem, right? If you solve a problem, you've created value, because people like to have their problems solved. The problem with that is that your problems are different than my problems are different than Mikey's problems, right? If there's a kid somewhere who doesn't have anything to eat, we know what his problem is, right? And he is not worried about the problems of, the socialite that's living in the Hamptons that, is wearing the wrong hue of colored dress to a night party, right? And so, but to that person in the Hamptons, that is a problem, right? And so it's like, how do we determine that? I think what's interesting is value is some problems can be observable from anyone, right? I can look at that person, say they're hungry, and I can solve that problem, right? But there's problems we don't even know we have. And to your point, when you're talking about gaps, when you help somebody recognize that, wow, you're right, I didn't even realize that was a problem I had, but now I really want that solved, and you have a product or a service that does that for me, right? It's wild, like, this whole AI chat GPT thing. All these people are realizing at first, like, oh, who would care about that? Well, all of a sudden it's solving problems that people didn't even know they had. And now all of a sudden it's creating value, right? It's creating this value. And so, to your point about, the truck driver only creating value during those hours of the truck, but that spreads, right? Because what happened is you have a company like, for example, Amazon, and all of a sudden Amazon comes out with Prime, and I can get free shipping. Ignore the fact that this is built into the price and whatnot. From a marketing perspective, all of a sudden we lived in a world where you paid for shipping and handling, or you can pay one price and you have free shipping and guaranteed 2-day delivery. That was a game changer, right? That provided value for people who wanted their stuff fast and didn't want to pay shipping. But look at what had to happen to an industry. Look at what happened at UPS, FedEx, DHS, all of these companies saying, whoa, okay, we need to be able to deliver on this. And it's like, how does FedEx build in getting the most amount of packages in each one of those trucks that driver is driving? And I think that's an interesting thing, is how that spreads, and the problem you solve can create value in thousands of people's careers for what you're doing. Does that make sense in terms of where I'm going at? I think that's a fascinating concept. I think that's something that entrepreneurs can solve, and I think that's a really fun thing to be thinking about, because it's not just necessarily solving a problem to that customer. It's everything that gets involved in the infrastructure to build and solve that problem. What are your thoughts, Brian? I know you got a little distracted there. If not, I can repeat anything.
I got a little bit distracted. Sorry, I had a little bit of a little one joining
No,
on the rent.
no worries, no worries.
I think that there's a lot of ways of generating value. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I think there's a lot of ways of generating value. And I think that when you are in a, let's say in a I don't want to go that far as a product market fit, but like when you join a team and you have a very clear responsibility, you're the goalkeeper or you are the person that is providing defense. You have a very clear understanding of what you have to do, and it's both your understanding of that task and at the same time your understanding that somebody else is going to perform another task that is highly critical for the team to succeed, because you want to score a goal, but you don't really score a goal. You actually play your position, and sometimes that yields that you are the one scoring the goal, but it's the team that wants to score the goal. Even the coach from outside scored the goal. So I think that that advantage happens in very mature businesses or very mature processes. And in my case, some of these roles, like what I'm suggesting of the truck driver, is a very mature role in our society. We've already
Yeah.
mastered a lot of the technology that happens in the vehicle, the load, the containers, and kind of the routes and the roads. So there's a lot of things that have been already figured out, and your role is very specific for that team, and you're
Mm,
Yeah.
playing a role that we know as a human, as a society. When it comes to entrepreneurship, we don't, and we do not have it. Even if you
Yeah.
know about entrepreneurship, your entrepreneurship endeavor is going to be different than mine.
Yep.
Even if you're doing the same industry, we're going to
Yep.
face very different
A lot
challenges.
of trailblazing.
yeah.
A lot of
Yeah, a lot of
trailblazing.
That's a
problems.
beautiful way of saying that, man. And I think a perfect segue into that was one of the last things I want to ask until before we move on to Web3, unless there's something on Nordstrom you want to touch on. But you went from 0 to 1 and sold a company. People dream about that. A lot of people try and never even succeed. But you had uh, the chance to do that. Two things, kind of the same question, but looking back, what were some of the hardest lessons learned or things that you would do differently? Because I think that's always interesting to hear from different entrepreneurs doing different things.
A very good question. And let me tell you what are the hardest thing. The hardest thing that I think we had to do was um, the very first year, or maybe 6 months, were very, very hard in the sense that um, it took longer to get to where we thought we were going to get, and that meant that our income, our savings, and our kind of livelihood or quality of life started to get impacted as we were getting to the most important part of the project, that is kind of like the last push to get it out. I think that the second half of the first year was the hardest one. We were beyond our plans and what we were trying to accomplish, and it's very hard to try to solve a problem when you're stressed, when you're having challenges, especially when challenges at home, and economic challenges always reap through a lot of family, because it could mean your food, your entertainment, your some of the your
Totally.
home care. And I think that was the hardest thing. It was the having to deal with extra challenges that were not part of value creation.
Right.
It was things that I had in perfect control when I was working for Microsoft, and they went out of balance because of my inexperience, because of my inability to predict the future, because my crystal ball doesn't work. I
Right.
don't know if yours work, but mine doesn't work that well. And um, I think that we added many more challenges that we had to really face in order to take care of the business, and that was very hard. I remember that being one of the toughest things for me, for my family at the moment, and
Yeah. No,
and
that,
and
that that's very well said. Looking back, do you think there's anything that could have made them less, or was that just part of the game as being an entrepreneur and everyone's kind of got to go through that? Any thoughts there?
I think I was inexperienced
Yeah.
in what it meant to prepare for such an unknown kind of path. Like I didn't have a way to know what I didn't know, and I did not curb it. I didn't corner
Right.
that realm of possibilities. Now I'm in a very different stage in my career, and I've learned a ton of different ways of dealing with it. And I feel like when I try to kind of tackle goals that are similar in the challenge or the magnitude, I have a feeling that I'm much better prepared. I'm much more reasonable in my predictions, and I land much closer to where I want to land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have a better strategy for planning. I plan for double the time because I know that it's
Yep.
impossible to plan.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally makes
And
sense.
the first one's like unique though, man. It's like, you know, that first day at school when you're at a new school, or maybe you go from middle school to high school or high school to college. You know, I remember getting to Penn State and I was like, this campus is huge. I don't know where the buildings are. I'm gonna like there's all of this fear of this unknown. But even after just day one, you start to like settle in. You know what I mean? And the difference between going from your first year to your second year is massive. And I just think what you're describing, I think everybody experiences that. I thought I was so ready to start a business. And I had a ton of different experiences, soft skills, all these things that oh, I'm ready to go. And it's like I don't know if anything really prepares you for what that first year is like. But then once you've done it, it's like you've gone through that first year of school, and now it's like, okay, I know what to expect now. And it's a massive difference. But I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of people either keeps people from entrepreneurship that would be great entrepreneurs, um, or is it's easy for it to fizzle out. Because like you said, I mean, life starts happening, home stuff. It's very easy and even justified to say I got to walk away from this, but it's a tough thing to get through that first point.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I don't think there's a very good way of predicting if you're gonna be good at it or not. That is,
I agree.
I'm so sad that I don't have a much more hopeful recommendation because I can't tell you that I can't tell you that I even have what is needed for the second one.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
something that I'm gonna have to figure out on my own and figure out a way of going as far as I should go before I determine that that is not how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And like the concept of pivoting a company, our company pivoted like 3 times. We were focused on styling solutions between friends. We thought that friends were going to shop between each other. And
Mhm.
actually, friends that help other friends don't seem to like it that much. So
Right.
that was not a business. They help you because you're a friend, but they don't want to do that anymore. And then we found customers and salespeople, and the salespeople wanted to collaborate with the shoppers. And that's a relationship that is much more, it's from an expert to a customer. It's like, hi, may I help you?
Yep.
And that's where the first change came.
Yeah.
And after that was the realization that the web world was not the future and mobile was the future. And people had a
Mm,
phone in their pocket, not a desktop in their pocket.
right.
So then Mark Zuckerberg, like mobile first, that whole change that happened in the early 2000s. So we were the company that shifted from a web only to a web plus mobile app ecosystem with an administration kind of admin panel on behind the scenes. And then that would serve the 3 customers that we had: the customer that used the product, the salesperson that used the other side of the product, and then the business owner that was actually looking at the
Yeah.
administration panel and actually making decisions about sales, about performance, about customer behavior. But
Yeah.
That's
No,
really
but
you
what
you
you,
won't find that out ahead of time. It's a very agile approach. It's a
and,
very agile path.
and I think that's perfectly sound advice is to say, be prepared for not knowing what you're going to need to know and creating, you know, uh, you can at least create plans that are reasonable in your mind to begin with and not far fetched. And, if you have the luxury to not strap yourself for cash, because we've had people on here that have quit their, high 6-figure salary, dumped $1 million of their money into a company, and then they're feigning in the middle of their apartment a year later, right? That could have been avoided with maybe a little bit more um, realistic planning, but at the same time, uh, there was a lot learned in that year, right? So I don't think there's a correct answer, and I think
Yeah.
your answer is just inherently unique. And we always say this on the show. We talk about a lot of the same principles, right? And it is you even said in the beginning of this, the constant pursuit of learning and growing. Pretty much 100% of the people that are successful believe in that principle. It's just, you got to do that to be successful, right? But the way you say that you do it compared to someone else is just another way for someone to resonate with principles they need to learn to tackle maybe entrepreneurship or working for Procter and Gamble or starting their own NFT. So I really appreciate your insight and your thoughts, man, because they're clear, concise, and they're very thoughtful.
Thank you, Mike.
Maddie, any thoughts before we kind of transition from professional into Web3?
I was going to say, let's get to Web3 because I think one component that we haven't had a chance to talk about is also timing. And even if you do all of these things right, trying to do the same thing in Web3 right now versus trying to do it a year ago, two totally different experiences, right? And
Right.
timing can mean a lot too. So I think let's bring it into Web3. I'm curious how that transition happened. Obviously, you're very tech savvy. Um, what got you into crypto, man? What got you into Web3 in the first place, and finding out about it, and then kind of pulled you in and pulled you down the rabbit hole?
Well, the name that for me was Simon, my friend Simon from
Okay.
from school. Is that you always have a person that tells you for the very first time
Yeah.
about something. So let's go back to Slumdog Millionaire moment. It was Simon. He was like, "Hey, look at this thing. We can send money and we can do this thing." It's like, what? Yeah, and I'm mining it. I was like, what? You're just creating money? He's like, yeah, this is how it works. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Let me read a little bit. And I read the paper because that's what I read. And I just read it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense. Through mathematics, you're doing the exact same thing as banks. It's like, it makes so much sense. And since then, I was very, very interested in learning more. Um, at the beginning, it was as a way of just speculating on Bitcoin, because I have friends in Latin America and I was in the States. The transfer of money provided some flexibility for certain things, and that was the extent of it at the beginning. And it's not until the Ethereum kind of VM world starts picking up and that I start getting a little bit exposed to the concept of contracts. And I never read much until um, the level two L2 starts showing up, and that's when the proof of stake, when they start doing the validators, I thought it was a good exposure to set up a validator myself, and I kind of got one of the, I guess, Prism or one of the experiences, and had my proof of work chain and all that stuff. And I think I was running a couple of Raspberry Pis because I wanted to see if we can actually create a whole data center of Raspberry Pis and have a bunch of validators and go on a staking kind of exposure. And I set it all up and had the whole sysadmin. I had my little thing while it was still, the beacon chain was still in testing. It was not doing anything really. I was on the fake networks, on the side network. And that's where I understood the power of the contracts, because that was the first time that I wrote a contract to understand how it worked. And I found a few things that are the ones that I think are the few secrets that the blockchain technology has that I think that can be translated into a lot of value for people. And that's my journey.
Tell us this. All right, so there's a couple things. Um, I would love to hear in your own words, what Web3 and kind of this whole NFT ecosystem means to you in your own words, and you know, the opportunity it presents the world. I'd love to hear that from your view.
Perfect. Let me tell you. This move from the blockchain, great technology as a journal technology, immutable and ever increasing. And the cost of adding a block is kind of nominal. For me, that is the very first thing. Then putting a VM on top of it is, I think, is one of those huge leaps that technology or that the whole industry had, in the sense of having an Ethereum blockchain and being as much more programmable than the little programmability that BTC has or Bitcoin has. For me, that was unbelievable, because the way that I appreciate it is that you and I have different PCs or Macs or whatever device that you use, and we figure out this network that runs across the world called the internet, and suddenly our computers are connected. And the currency of this network is transferring stuff. I get files, I transfer them to you. We get this video and we transfer it to live stream. And we are transferring data. It's a lot about transferring. It's a lot about copying it, keeping sync. There's a lot of it because the system is very, very time sensitive. And then you have to create all these transfers that make things slow. You have to download stuff and all that process. The reality is that the Ethereum virtual machine, or any blockchain virtual machine, is that there is one. There's only one. And you and I get to touch that computer and run stuff on that computer. But there's only one. It's like if my laptop was the laptop that you were all using. Your files are right next to them. There's no concept of I'll send you an attachment. Is you have access to the single copy of the attachment that is necessary. Why would you have to have two copies of it? It doesn't make any sense. It's a practical challenge because your networks are very slow. That doesn't happen in the virtual world of Ethereum. Everything is there. No transfers are required. And we are all using the same one. So for me, it's fascinating when you remove one of those restrictions or one of those, not restrictions, one of those defining characteristics of what it is, the network and internet today, and you take away those things, there's a ton of solutions that you have to completely reimagine in order for them to extract the most value from the system and still deliver the promise of whatever the problem is trying to be solved. But this technology has a lot of Lego pieces that are they have no comparison in any other industry. There's nowhere else that you can find those building blocks, and that creates a whole family of solutions
Right.
for problems that exist and will exist in the future.
Dude, beautiful way of I love this single computer analogy.
Yeah, great.
Fantastic. I've never heard anybody explain it in that way, and just a great job to do it in your own words. And I think the second one was I think you said right at the end before we went into that was you found some few surprises when you were building contracts. Expand upon that because I am intrigued.
I'll tell you. The things that I find very interesting. Number one is that although we all get to use the same computer, no information is truly private. In a sense that you can try to make it hardly accessible by encrypting, by writing a riddle, maybe writing a reminder for what your password is. Yeah, you can make it very hard to find the data. But you can actually take advantage of the fact that everything is public. And I think that there's a lot of solutions that exist. Like, for example, a Dropbox will not exist if we all had access to the same hard drive. Doesn't make any sense. So the next question is, what are all the things that Dropbox builds on top of their infrastructure that actually eliminates the problem of multiple hard drives? And all those things are native to this virtual machine that I'm talking about. So you can just start competing with Dropbox right now, right where they are, and just go. And most likely your building blocks in the blockchain are superior to their AWS building blocks for hard drives. That is a fairly antiquated way, or a ton of different problems. So for me, the first thing is how public it can be. In a way like Wikipedia public. That is super powerful for the Wikipedia concept. I think that for attachments, for transfer of information, and for keeping central copies of contracts or agreements is very, very powerful in a way that a vault is not, in a way that a filing cabinet is not, or official documents like your birth certificate being stored somewhere that people can make copies and all that stuff is ridiculous, and being stored in servers that can blow up if something happens is extremely risky. And you put that in the blockchain and it will not get lost.
Yeah.
It will not get lost. And I think that is a very, very strong promise. The concept of something could be there and it's not going to get lost.
But but I also heard him like, and to me, what you're saying is there's a little doubt in that and maybe I'm interpreting this wrong, but I felt almost hesitation by you to say there's people that can work the system because everything is so public. Were you going there too?
I didn't mean that there's something to be worked on. I think that you need to be very careful because everything is public.
Gotcha.
And if you do not intend it to be public, there's a lot of consequences. Like people that don't understand that posting online is public, or
Right.
it will be stored for a long time.
Right.
And I think that is something that you need to be aware of, because if not, you can actually shoot yourself in the foot.
Right.
Now, what I mean is that your computer right now is not public. It's meant to be private by default. I don't have access to your files. I cannot know how much room you have left in your hard drive or anything. But In the Ethereum side, I know exactly all the transactions that you've made from that account. I can see all the transactions that you're doing at the moment, and that can provide things like you can totally prove stuff without any effort. Like we've been working together for this long and we've been doing this kind of transactions, and here it is. And we don't even have to subpoena anybody. We don't have to ask you for it. I can come in right now and find out what you did 10 years ago. And if that is, I think that is a feature that if you
Sure.
abuse it and you use it, you can get a lot of benefit. A lot of benefit. I think that
Gotcha.
right now we only think about the world is private, my computer is private, my information is private. I put it in the public and it's going to get accessed by everybody. Yes. But now think about the things that you want them to be public. My name. My name is public. I want people to know my name. I want people to know what my face looks like. I want people to know what assets I own when it comes to a home or when it comes to a car. So I don't have to have a key because my key is my lack of trust that people don't understand who really owns this thing. But it
Right.
could be recorded somewhere else where the key is not, I mean, the key is
Sure.
clearly not a good
Well,
technology, but
Right.
and to rewind to how we started, when we were talking about Venezuela, right? What corporations, what businesses would it be really nice to have this stuff? Because the problem we just talked about when it came to banks shutting down and spending money they don't have is that they're centralized, right? And so when you talk about the exact same thing you're talking about, imagine if any CPA anywhere could audit any bank and their transactions because it was there. You know what I mean? Instantly. Um, would you feel like your money was safer if you knew that was the case? And there was a time you may say no, but having gone through what you've gone through in Venezuela, having people gone through what they've gone through here now, and by the way, the same thing happened to us in 2008, right? With much larger banks. And so, how many bailouts do we have before somebody says, obviously your own account? Moving around in the shadows is creating problems, and it's not just for them, it's for all of us, right? Are there other industries, government, right? I mean, the Constitution, for example, here in the States was founded on the idea of transparency in government. You know what I mean? But we can all kind of like chuckle a little bit and know like that obviously isn't really the case. And it's one thing if we're talking about Area 51 or something like that, or some military secret. But like how everything is budgeted and like where dollars go to school boards, does that really need to be behind closed doors, or would that be better in a public forum? And these are answers as a society we have to answer. But I think, to your point, blockchain solves a lot of these things
Mhm.
in an immutable way.
You bring a good point because I am a little bit surprised and kind of sad that governments have not been much more of the users of the blockchain technology because I think there's a lot of scenarios where the government spend a lot of money becoming the official certification of something having happened, and I think that the blockchain is a great conduit to actually record that and have people access it through their own, let's call them APIs or different ways that they would like to access the information, and that would provide a lot of transparency, and I think it would reduce complexity and costs. I mean,
Oh,
granted that
It would absolutely
a
reduce complexity and
hundred
cost.
percent will.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it is who's gonna be at the top to make change for good, because when there's billions of dollars being thrown around, there's a lot of people that want to continue to keep it private, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. There's a
that's
lot of power.
that's an unfortunate reality of the situation.
But
it's
to our all of our points though, something like blockchain technology getting to a point where you can't deny it. Like the internet did this, right? There was a time when it wasn't ubiquitous, right? And so it is now, and it'd be weird to think of a world without it, but it wasn't always that way. Or cellular technology, right? These things now are just part of the deal. Um, I do think this could get to a point where it's almost like they have to adopt it because it'd be impossible not to. You know what I mean? Imagine if the IRS didn't have a way to file your taxes through the internet. You know what I'm saying? If we were still like mailing them in with letters, people would be like, "Yeah, come on." There'd be a problem. And so eventually this stuff does get pushed forward. It's just very slow. And that is typical of government. Nothing about government is fast. So
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see that technology, to your point, what would it be like with full transparency? What things could be benefited from that? And by the way, even just from an auditing standpoint, like truly from a quality assurance standpoint, there would be problems that would be caught so much sooner, and that could be billions of dollars saved because they weren't just spun up in these lost processes that nobody catches till it's too late. I just think there's a lot of that stuff that would be cleaned and
I,
optimized.
I agree. I agree. Like, there's always a little challenge with um, the size of the network. I think that there's some networks in in the crypto space, not so much the Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin one is still not large enough. The size of the amount of nodes and their distribution across what we would call independent parties. Because if you have like a whole mining network or whatever, mining rings that are set up, and they control a large chunk of the network's value starts degrading. And I think that for certain solutions that require very high accuracy in the certification, very, very high accuracy, I think that some of the networks are not large enough. And that would include for me the Ethereum network in some scenarios. So I think that that is the part that is still holding some scenarios for coming in is
Interesting.
how seemingly small the network is if you happen to have kind of state power resources, like large state resources. So
Yeah.
a world power can still, for a few minutes, dwarf the network and disrupt it
Right.
in a way that it could be problematic, or I can understand that would be a problem. But that critical mass will be reached at some point if it keeps
Yeah.
growing. And once you go past that point, especially when you have the Ethereum blockchain running on your watch, in your headphones. Your headphones are wireless, also come with a node that actually pays for its, I don't know, and you get a discount of 10% because you actually have a node running on your headphones. At that point, we will be in a much healthier point for new solutions to move in.
I
So I
love
think
it.
Let's do this. Because I want to get to your project. One more question, though, because you have such a great background and so many different skill sets that we can kind of pull upon here. Talking to the regular, everyday just person, our mom and dad, the person that's still shopping and getting Herbal Essence shampoo, and doesn't know about Web3. You know what I'm saying? What is your like brief, and to go back to that Herbal Essence example, like how do you sell the shampoo to a person who doesn't understand Web3? What is your thought process? How would you break that down and explain it and say, this is why, this is the future, and this is where things are gonna move towards, in a way that, like, again, makes me want to use that as my shampoo?
Yeah. So let's do Web3 and NFT in two different parts. I think
Sure.
starting with Web3, for me the explanation is Web3 is an evolution of a network like the internet. And it has this advantage that you can run programs on this thing. The same programs that you get to run on your computer. So you can open an application and you get to use it, or run an app on your phone. You have that same experience. And the advantage is that in this system, you connect to it, you identify yourself, and then you run the program. Pretty much like you do with your phone. You open it up, do a biometric, or put your password in, and now you have access, and that phone has your information. Now you can get to interact with it. It's the same thing, but the computer is not on your phone. It's just out there. And you can tell it what to do. There's a bunch of smart people that have been creating really cool applications in that space. For example, they have savings accounts, they have investment products, they have currency exchange applications. So if you go to an exchange place in an airport, you can exchange money. These people created one in that world. You come in with your money, you exchange it, it's called Uniswap, and it just gives you money in another one. And you can do this whenever you want, however you want. For me, that is the beauty of Web3. This new computer, you come in, you don't have a password, You just use your identity, there's a digital thing, and then go and use the computer. The computer is super excited right now about financial services, and they're going crazy about it. So there's a ton of financial services in the Web3. And then there's this thing called NFTs that, without getting into super details of the NFT, the non-fungible tokens, but at the end is the ability to know what you own or who owns that piece. As important as it is the bill, a dollar bill that you have in your pocket. You pull it out, the bill is yours because it's in your wallet. Well, imagine not having to need the physical thing. You can just claim ownership on stuff, and they will be in your list of things that you own. The same way that there's a list of, I own this car. And if somebody tries to take it away from me, I can go with this document and show it to somebody, and they know it's my car, or my house, or my plane ticket, or my concert ticket. Concert is kind of a little different, but the plane ticket has my name. I just go, I lose it on the ground, I just have to print another one. As long as I am the one providing my ID, it works. All those things that you do in real life is what NFTs are doing in the digital world. And they can be used for those same transaction things that exist in the past, like tickets and title ownerships. But the reality is that now there's a whole world of all these cool new things that you can do when that ownership is actually purely digital. And that's where this whole world of NFTs start.
And that's a beautiful way to segue into, you've now described in many different ways why you're interested in Web3, what Web3 has to offer. So what's Foreverland? Why did you decide on it? And take us through the idea. And one of the questions, if you that has been in chat that's popped up, is they're interested in how you found the dev team for your project, or are you just the dev at this point? Because we know you have a robust background. So if you can weave that into your explanation of Foreverland, that'd be great.
Definitely. I'll tell you about where Foreverland came from. I'm a father of two beautiful girls, and when my second daughter was born, it was very close to the time that my dad passed, and I had this very impactful moments in your life that are very intense. I mean, the passing of my parents and the birth of my daughters, and for me, I was searching as a very corny parent. I was searching for a way of celebrating the life of my kids. And if you've ever seen a newborn, they don't seem to enjoy anything in the world. They're pretty much focused on like breathing and like pooping. That's the only thing that they do for days. So I was not thinking that she was going to appreciate anything with her name or a toy that was not the gift that I was looking for. Of course, she has a ton of different things of age appropriate, but I was looking for what I would think a meaningful gift. And I started asking people. I asked people, what do you do? And there's some people told me that you can plant a tree, you can buy a bench somewhere, you can write them a letter, you can buy pearls every year, and then they can make a necklace when they're old enough. Beautiful things about that. But the theme was, you can create this thing that keeps going. You can create this thing that waits until they're mature enough to consume it. That's what they were telling me. Just build up. Eventually, they will get it. And that's where the idea for Foreverland came. I was looking for this place where I could record this moment, capture this moment, and celebrate it. But I didn't want it to get lost because I was not sure by when my daughter will be able to enjoy it, by when the next person is going to be able to enjoy it. And I realized that sometimes the gifts that you give to your kids, it's not the only recipient. You're going to have their kids look into what the grandfather did, their great granddaughters looking at what the great grandparent did. And I found that you can create gifts that will last forever. And I found that very beautiful. I was surprised about the fact that the blockchain, and especially the way that the Ethereum blockchain allowed it, and what NFTs are, they are really conduits for ownership and information to last forever. Because once you're in the blockchain and another block comes in front of you, There's a snapshot somewhere that has your information. That's not going to get lost. There's thousands and thousands of nodes with that information. And for me, that's going to outperform Wikipedia. At one point, those servers are going to go down, like MySpace. Like if you had information there, it's gone. It's gone. You're not going to find it anymore. And in 100 years, it's not going to be there. But in 100 years, you need that transaction of Ethereum for the thing to work. If not, it won't. It doesn't work. It works by adding stuff. You cannot remove anything. And for me, that was so powerful. It's like there is a true foreverness utility in the machine. The utility of the NFT collection that represents Foreverland is foreverness. That's the only utility that is centered around the core of Foreverland. And with that topic, I just wanted to try it out. I just wanted to create this world where you could actually come, own a piece of this world, record your moment, and leave it there forever. Slightly different than what NFTs are today, where it's a lot of a collection, there's an artist, there's a visual representations, and there's a lot of those components, and then you pick and choose to participate on those. Like I participate in certain brands that I acquire, certain technology that I acquire. I just join your artistic world. In my case, I was thinking completely different. I thought that we could all get into this thing, and I can write my own. You can write your own, and everybody else can write their own. And because we were all writing on the same theme, that makes a collection. That makes our NFT collection for this collective. And for me, that sounded like a beautiful way of capturing those moments. And that's kind of where Foreverland comes from. Yeah.
I love it. It's really. I remember when you explained it to me, I was like, man, I haven't heard anybody think of an NFT this way and create kind of digital moments. So take us through how it actually works. Because people understand an NFT is really a PFP. Let's be honest. They think of it as a piece of artwork and a PFP currently. So how are you thinking about how the collection works? Where are you at in the marketing? I'm assuming, I think we talked that like you're starting to kind of drum up marketing. We're in the very beginnings of it. And take us through that.
Yeah. So Foreverland is meant to be a collection of lands. Kind of like Disneyland is a collection of different pieces. And I guess that's where Disney World kind of influence comes in.
Yeah.
But I realized, like, have you heard about the bridge in Paris, the Love Bridge, where people hang
Yep.
locks on the
Yep.
The
fence
locks.
I
Yep.
hang the
to
lots.
like signify their commitment, right? And the idea is that you go and you put this lock and you throw the key over and you actually symbolize it that nobody can get that thing out of there because your commitment is as solid as that lock. And I think it's a beautiful expression of what I was trying to find. That was one of the options. Is like go to Paris and put a lock for your kids. The reality is that bridge started having structural problems with extra weight. And there was so many logs that the fences started drooping and they started breaking. And the government had to take them off. Have to take all the logs out. Actually, the fences right now do not allow locks. There's a cop that will give you a ticket or something if you try to put a lock. And it's because it destroyed the building. So a beautiful execution became so popular that actually destroyed the whole experience for everyone. And for me, I was like, you know what? I think that is the place where I want to pay some homage. I want to celebrate that experience. So inspired by that bridge, that is the first land that Foreverland brings. If you go to foreverland.io and you go to the app.foreverland.io, and you get to to our website, once it loads, you're going to see our representation of a bridge. It's a small enough bridge that has 2,500 locks all around the fence. Each one of the locks is empty. It's actually an empty spot. You can get a spot. You can click on any of the spots you want. You can buy it. You will actually do your Ethereum transaction, and then you will own a blank spot in the bridge, in a specific column, a specific row, specific panel. There will be some others right next to yours. And once you own that, you own an NFT. You can go to OpenSea. You will see your empty spot, the coordinates, the position, its rarity because of where it's located. And now you get the chance to go to step number 2. Now that you have this spot, it's reserved, it's yours, you get a chance to write what you want to write in it. So now you are going to define your one-of-one NFT within our collection, where you get to pick your lock. There's different locks, depending if you like bling bling, or if you don't, if your love is pure like a spad lock, maybe that's your expression, and you're going to pick the right one. And once you get to the right one, you're going to write your message. You're going to be as detailed as you think the moment needs to be captured, or you will be as cheeky as it requires. The one that I wrote with my wife, it just has Tracy and Brian and the day that we get married. And that's enough for her to understand what I was thinking in the moment and how we can celebrate our love. And when you actually write that message, the NFT will just transform. I mean, there's some other, they call it mutate if you're an ape or whatever, but it's a transformation of the NFT where it goes from blank to yours. And now is the detail there. All the metadata gets updated. You have a beautiful lock, and now you have a link that just points to that lock. Or you have the NFT in your wallet, whatever you want to, however you want to get to it. But all those links will point back to the bridge. So you can see your lock in context, and anybody in the world will be able to see your lock in context. Exactly like it happened on the bridge in Paris, but in a virtual way, all backed up by the blockchain, where I don't have to be, you don't have to trust me on the forever thing. That's provided by the blockchain, and they do it really well.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's a really, really interesting idea. So, how, there's obviously a lot of people starting an NFT because they want to turn it into a business. They want to monetize as much as possible. There's been a lot of scams just due to the money. How are you thinking about monetization? Where Foreverland goes, or are we looking at this as a purely artistic project? Let's dive deep into kind of the business side, or if there is one at all.
Yeah, let me tell you about it. So for me, the ambition with this project was to truly be able to write things that I feel like I want to keep forever, celebrating those moments. So honestly, that is as far as my ambition goes, monetarily speaking. I just need to be able to fill the bridge in a way of indicating that we've had created value where people, and that people are recognizing the value that we're creating. And that is step number 1. We want to get this chance, especially as I'm starting all the marketing and all the effort, is to get the very first people that are going to come in to get these locks for free. I mean, if you go there, you can buy one for 0.001 ETH. It's nothing. It's like, I think the gas fee is higher than the price. And my goal is to get all the early adopters to get a chance to write their message and understand exactly what's working and what's not working from the message. How does it feel to write a message that is public? How has the recipient felt about it? What kind of messages are we writing? Are we writing messages for our loved ones? Writing messages for our kids? Are we writing messages for our pets? I still have so many doubts about what the community would like to use it. But I do need to get to one point in terms of monetarily speaking. I have the Foreverland land is built, it's all paid for, the system that is built and all the design that were through the artists involved in the project. But I don't want to stop in one land. I want to go to the next land and explore another human emotion. The emotion right now is very centered about love and about showing commitment. But I think there is a land that is much better suited for people that are no longer with us. And there's another land that is better suited for people that are embarking into very hard projects. Maybe you're going to college, maybe you're starting a business, maybe you're celebrating an achievement, a physical achievement, a sports outcome. I think that there's different ways that we can create these collections that are represented by a land within Foreverland in context with other lands. And you will be able to find the right land to express your feelings, and you will find yourself among other NFT holders that enjoy the same concept, that understand the theme, and they're part of that collection. So I think that that's my hope, is that we can get enough funding to make the next land, and the next land out of the sales of the locks on the bridge.
Maddie, what are your thoughts?
It's very interesting. I like where you're going with exploring different emotions. I think you picked a good one to start with. Love is definitely a powerful one. Just see basically like 90% of all song lyrics. Um, However, what it's interesting because what I'm seeing out of this is you scroll on social media and you'll see some ad and somebody is selling, name a star after a loved one or something like that. And it kind of gives me that thought process of, okay, the same what you're talking about, like this idea of immortality, right? This is something that will be recorded, et cetera, et cetera. But as you said, recorded where, and how long does that last? And what happens when the fence falls apart because so many people put locks on it, right? I see where that's going, and the fact that you're not trying to necessarily monetize it as a way to like make millions and millions of dollars, but just to create essentially a new fence for people to be able to post this, um, is fascinating to me because it almost seems like a psychological experiment. My question is this. The thing you loved about blockchain is that it's transparent and it's linked to your identity. Certain emotions, I think that works with, right? In terms of you want to share something and have a lock there for you and your wife or for your child or something like that. However, others, what if the goal is anonymity, is what I'm saying. Is there a function in this that allows, and I'll tell you why I say it. Did you ever hear about the postcard book where it was like basically this person just like had people write postcards totally anonymous, don't say who you are, say nothing, and just like basically uh give away a secret about
Hmm.
your life, right? And what happened was is this became this thing and they got so many of them, they just started publishing books. And it was wild, the stuff people would like say it because you never knew it was them. And they would say these like almost cathartic things. And I just wonder, if I know it's linked to me, do I say something that I know is linked to me and that is appropriate in the same way somebody would do that in a public setting? Or do I give you the good stuff because you may not know it's me? I don't know. Just
It's an
those are some of the
interesting
initial
thought.
thoughts
It's such a
that are that
good
are
thought.
that are some of the things that are popping through my head as I hear about this.
And I think you're nailing it in that you just describe the emotion of revealing a secret anonymously. And
Mm,
there should be a matching land in Foreverland where you can actually buy your lock and somehow tornado cash it through something that will never be known that you created that. And you will hold it either in a shadow wallet or you will not hold it. You will just put it in a wallet where they
yeah,
all go and nobody knows, and you will be the only one that knows that
Yeah.
you wrote it. I think that is the perfect way to execute that land. And I'm looking forward to getting to that land. It will be so
that's cool.
fun to give people an ability to record their secret forever, but disconnected from them. It
Sure,
will be so cathartic to let it go forever, but you will
sure.
never know who I am.
Right.
It's fascinating.
I like it. I like, and the only other thing I would say is there's the Web 2 example is a lot of these things have a very easy way, like the star example, where it's like you can show up on your phone and be like, "Look, Grandma, this is the star I bought for you," right? Um, Outside of people already in this space, is your audience primarily people who are in the space, relatively familiar with Web3 and NFTs? Is that what you're looking for? Or is there a plan to spread to, quite frankly, just an audience that isn't quite used to the idea of having a crypto wallet and, the Ethereum blockchain, but still being able to do something? I could see sharing this idea and somebody being attracted to the idea of having a digital lock on the fence. And then me trying to explain MetaMask and them going, you see what I'm saying? And so, do you have a plan to help bridge that?
Definitely, definitely. But let me tell you on my agile approach to solve this problem, where it's starting and why that is step two
Sure.
for me.
Love it.
I totally believe that the humans that would like to own a lock in that bridge are many more than the ones that own an NFT wallet or NFT
For sure.
enabled or able to participate or Web3 enabled. I totally agree with that. What I think is important right now is to have a customer that understands the utility value of foreverness, understands the publicness or the public nature of the message, like to your comment of anonymity, and um, can actually use the system that is the fastest to build. So for me, the focus is there must be an overlap between people that have a Web3, that are Web3 enabled and have used the Web3 and have a funded wallet and have NFTs that also would like to capture messages. And that is my beta target. That is the people that I'm targeting right now. I want you that you understand it to take advantage of this thing. I'm giving this out for free because I want to get you exposed to it. Because there's going to be a point where the next on-ramp is going to be built. And there's now that there's a ton of them that you can actually take Visa or fiat payment directly on your site. And then you actually get the NFT to a shadow wallet or a wallet that is actually hosted by the payment provider. And the reality is that this NFT is not that important who owns it, who has it on the wallet. It's much more important who mutated it, who wrote the information in it. Because once you write it, it cannot be changed and it will not be altered. So the advantage of this concept is that the non-web enabled, not Web3 enabled folk will not have to become Web3 in order to use the system.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to pay for their part with one of these on-ramp systems. And from there, you just need to have a browser to get to a lock. It's a 3D world. You can just use your finger. You can go to one OpenSea and see your lock there. It's definitely not I'm not expecting people to be speculating with them or transferring them excessively, most likely to their final user or the few people that will probably get a few of them, write beautiful poetry on them, and those would be resold to somebody else. But that's more like the one-on-one artist that will find the one-on-one writers instead of the artists that can draw a PFP. The ones that can write, I think they will find an outlet in some of those.
Yeah, and I like what you're doing in this. The true vein of entrepreneurship is, hey, let's look at the product market fit or the lean startup methodology, and let's build something, not ask for a ton of money, try to get people to use it and see what produces. Because like you said, you have no clue what the messages are going to be, what types of people are going to be using it. So there's so much to learn. And you providing a platform for essentially free. Now the task is to reach that target audience. And I think that's a perfect segue into what does the next 6 to 12 months look like for Everland, so people know what they can expect and can they mint right now, or is there a mint date? How's all that working?
Yeah, but this brings me back to the first comment about values that we were having the conversation earlier in the night. It's all about finding the community value. I told you the value that I think I want to get out of the system, being able to record beautiful life moments, very important life moments. That's what Brian wants. And Brian got. I own locks and I already have some messages on it.
Right.
And I owe a bunch of locks because I'm the minter. So I think that I just need to find out is what the royal you wants, the rest of the people. What do you want? What do you want to write? Because I already built what I wanted, and now I'm going to morph it to solve 2, 3, 400 people, 1,000 people's a problem, and we're going to adjust it. Because I'm not right the first time that I take a guess, and I'm not trying to pretend that I am. I want to find the people that are willing to kind of join in this exploration of how do we develop this concept. And that's what brings me to the approach of launching this in an organic way. And organic, I mean that the system right now that you can go on app.foreverland.io is fully functional. You connect your wallet, you pick a lock that is for sale. There's a few of them that are there. And you make the transaction of buying it. You'll just wait a few seconds while the transaction settles. And then your lock will just have a button that says write a message. And if you click on write a message there, you fill the form of the message, you pick your lock. There's like 6 designs that you can pick out of. And once you click write forever, A new transaction will pop up in your MetaMask. You accept that one, and your NFT will be transformed in a few seconds again. This is all kind of cloud-based, and the whole thing will be transformed immediately. It should take you like 12 seconds from beginning to end if you already have the message.
Right.
Most likely, you're going to spend a lot of time on that message box,
Right.
thinking it through. There's a little preview that makes sure that you know exactly what you're going to get out of. And once you write your message, the whole Ethereum blockchain will be reflected, and you have a brand new lock on that bridge.
And to be
And
clear,
your
it's
time
messages only, no video, no artwork, anything like that. We're just purely text right now.
in the current version, yes, only text. You can have
Gotcha.
multiple lines, and you can add lines as you need, and emojis are supported as well.
Love
So
it.
you can have some more emotions to it.
And so, other than listening to the community and evolving as we go, anything else in the next 6 to 12 months you want to cover, or is that about it? Because if so, we're getting towards the end. We have one more question that we like to ask. It's a softball, but yeah, just wanted to let
Let me
you
tell you.
throw
Let me
out
tell
any
you
last
more.
comments.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're focusing right now is on connecting with communities of people that understand the non-PFP nature of our project. I think that you are some of the folks that really understand what we're after.
Yeah,
You can see that we're not a classic PFP or a classic collection. And I think that having this conversation about the utility of the foreverness and the accessibility of something like that as a gift, I think is really important. And I want to have more of those conversations, and especially the kind of like things that Maddie was mentioning about the emotions of secrets, revealing secrets in an anonymous way. Those are really good things that we can actually keep cycling around our community and have some feedback about what are the next lands that we should be focused on. For me, the next 6 months is getting a lot of that awareness out, getting enough people to be the first ones that actually get to write their messages. Some of the people in the community have already done. But once we sell through all these free logs that we're going to be sending out, and we get a good number of logs, we're just going to be able to adjust the price to the point where it will be able to generate another land out of that sale. And that's going to be the focus for us. I would love to wrap the next 6 months, like the September timeframe way before the holidays, launching the second land that is focused on those messages that we keep seeing that do not perfectly match the love concept and are clearly not signed. People are creating wallets that only own one NFT, and they write it, and that will be Maddie's idea is the one that is picking up. There might be a lot of people growing their lives. So then we go to the garden where the flowers will grow. And if you're a 40-year-old flower, you'll be a big flower. But if you're a 1-year-old flower, you'll just be a little sprout. So that experience celebrating life through the growth of trees and vegetation could be a beautiful way of celebrating people's different ages. And there's a museum in a memorial in Madrid of the bombing attack in one of the train stations in Madrid, and they planted a tree for each one of the people that died in the event, and the trees are the size of how old each one of them were. So the really tall ones are really old people, and the really little trees
oh,
are
that's
really
pretty
young
wild.
people.
It's cool.
And when you see it, it just gives you this super intense feeling of what happened, because there's kids
Right,
and there's older people.
right.
And I think those are beautiful emotions that I want to capture, because I think that being able to digitally deliver those emotions is a perk for a human in this world, to be able to deliver those beautiful emotions just through a digital. I think that it's the ultimate alchemist kind of dream.
Yeah. No, I love it. Maddie, any last thoughts or comments before we kind of wind it down? And by the way, 2 hours and 23 minutes has gone by pretty quick. And that's where we're at
Yeah.
right now.
We're having fun, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate goal, right? The ultimate goal of any person who invents or designs is art, right? And what you just described, with that memorial in Madrid, that's not just a memorial, right? That's art. The thought that went into that is beyond just a plaque that said this happened. Do you know what I'm saying? You experience that it happened. and being able to deliver on experiences, man, that is definitely something that is always going to be in demand because it's extremely rare for people to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? So, um, yeah, I like this. I like this. My mind's racing on a bunch of different things because there's so many emotions. The best sports photographers, the best directors, when you think about their goal is to, or the best musicians, think about the way you feel when you hear a certain song, or, when you see Michael Jordan, jump from the freaking free throw line and dunk a basketball with all the flashes going off in that second, or, to Mikey's point, like what it feels like at a Penn State football game in the student section when they play Ohio State, there's these emotions that are elicited. And I think that you're finding a way to capitalize on that and almost in a social experimentation type way, and you're going to be able to refine that algorithm to kind of peak it towards that memorial in a way that I'd never really thought about NFTs before, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's totally unique and different. And the fact that you do have an artist working with you on that. So as you create these lands, you could create a young tree, old tree moment in whatever form that does come. So it'll be, I mean, hopefully, as you continue to mark, people think it's an interesting idea. It stays relatively cheap, and people start latching on to this because it could turn into a pretty cool, beautiful thing, man. So.
Yeah.
Um,
Mikey, I owe you the answer about who's my development team and
oh
who
yes,
does
I
that
do owe
work,
you
right?
that. Yeah.
You mentioned my artist. I am not artistry inclined or artistic capable or whatever. And I did work with some artists that actually built the 3D models of the bridge and the 3D models of the locks that you see on the experience, and some of the user interface. Now, the rest of the development I've done it myself, from the web experience to the backend system, the smart contract, and everything in between.
That's
And that
awesome.
comes just from, well, if you're gonna learn something, you gotta learn it from scratch and build something. And I think I can tell that I know how to build stuff. So it seems to have worked.
Well, and
But yeah,
that's why
lucky enough.
we no, I appreciate that, and that's why we have the show that we have, because when you say that, I know I can thoroughly believe you now with all the background that you've given us, that you know how to build. So we appreciate it. Um, we do have one final question, and then Matty will say his closing comments. I'll say mine, and we'll call it a night. How does that sound?
Let's do it.
All right. So the last question is, you've been in the Web3 space a while. I'm sure you've listened to AMAs, you've seen podcasts. Would love your feedback on how you thought tonight went, and any comments on the show.
Yeah, I really had a good time, completely beyond my expectations. Not in a way that reflects on you, but like I think that when you get to meet people that you haven't spent a lot of time with, there's a hit or miss possibility, and I think that it could have been that maybe we wouldn't have connected on some of the things in my life, or they wouldn't have been as interesting as I think you found them. So I'm very thankful for the inquisitive questions, the details, and how engaged you were. It was not a bunch of boiled questions or prepared questions. They were really about what we were discussing. So I think that is fantastic. And the fact that we got a chance to prepare and talk a little bit about how we're going to organize things, I think is super helpful. And I love the fact that you have all your stuff set up,
Thanks,
working.
man.
Oh yeah, working perfect. I
Uh,
like that
I
the level.
appreciate that.
I don't like super informal conversations, so I really enjoy the professionalism that you both are bringing. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, man. I like that you felt it was professional, but yet we still keep it casual. So that's always good. And we get a lot of similar feedback. I think we're in the same boat as you, right? I think we have an interesting idea. We're a little further down proving the product market fit. Now we're just got to keep on getting the word out and the eyeballs on, and having amazing guests like yourself that are articulate, well spoken, and have a amazing background really helps our show quality out as well. So thank you for that, and thank you for the kind words, Maddie. I'll let you say your closing comments. I'll say mine, and then we'll wind it down.
Sounds good. Brian, this has been a fantastic conversation. Each one of these, as we go through and interview guests, to your point, when you don't know somebody, it could be hit or miss, right? And Mike and I have been just absolutely blessed because we've had such amazing guests on this show from different backgrounds. And I just think it's really cool because getting a chance to hear your upbringing, where you're from, your passions, your love of languages and your love of computers and technology. But here's what's interesting is when you started your journey, at least with us having this conversation about your visits to Disney World and Disneyland, right? And what you saw about that and the wonder that gave. I think it is really cool that you have now experienced a life and built these skills. And what you're doing in the NFT space is when a child and I don't know if you've taken your girls to Disney World or whatnot, but to your point in the 80s when a child would get on that It's a Small World or see the animatronics and light up in the same way they see Mickey Mouse and it's real. It's real to them. You know what I mean? And this is what Walt Disney envisioned. He had this idea to build a place of magic where kids could go in there and just be taken to another world and experience this, right? The limitations, though, of being able to get there physically has always been an issue, right? Disney World is a global destination. And people have tried to create the same experience in Web 2 and with the internet. What I really think is cool is that you're taking that experience and you're bringing a level of, and I'm going to say the word immortality because you say that foreverness, right? That capturing these moments is important and it's valuable and it says something about us as a species and as human beings, right? Because if it didn't, we wouldn't go to things like that and care that our kids are seeing this, right? It's in us. There's a heartstring being tugged here, and I think it's really really cool because you are uniquely equipped to deliver this, and I'm really excited to see where it goes because if more people can capture this, maybe it can be more than just an iPhone full of 20,000 pictures that are backed up on a cloud somewhere that we hope are meaningful one day. We can create the same level of monument as you mentioned in Madrid, but imagine that for our own children. Imagine that as as a memorial to our parents or to the people who are loved ones that are impactful in our life or to a teacher that had an impact on us, right? Imagine being able to share that and them being able to see a garden of trees that has emerged from things that they've put into people. This butterfly effect of seeds that have been planted. So I think it's really cool, man, and I really think that I don't think things happen by accident. I'm a believer when it comes to that, and I think that your life was on purpose, and who you are, and your joys and your passions were on purpose. And in this situation, it does seem this is something that has just really kind of come together as a culmination of all the things that have make you who you are into this NFT project. So I really appreciate your time, man. I hope that you consider this the beginning of a friendship. And if there's anything that Mikey and I can do to help you move this process forward, we really, really are passionate about genuine human connection. And what you're talking about and immortalizing these moments that really matter more than just I got a raise from my boss or something like that. You know what I mean? Um, you got our attention, man. Anything we can do to help, please let us know. So thank you so much for your time. It's been great getting a chance to talk with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all those nice words, Maddie. I really enjoy it, and I really appreciate your words. Thank you.
So Maddie always does such a great job of these closing comments. I always like to say, always mirror what he says. A couple things stood out in my mind as well. One, just opening up your life to us it's just always miraculous for us to see that. Like, I talked to you on the phone for maybe 15-20 minutes, and then we talked 15 minutes before the show, and we really did get your life story, and in my mind started a friendship. So thank you for that. And then two, it was really refreshing to hear somebody in the Web3 NFT space trying to make a positive impact and not just trying to make another profile picture and see how many millions they can make overnight. And to your point, there's a lot of amazing things about the blockchain, but with so much money being tossed around because it's a new shiny thing, there's been a lot of people that have done bad with it. And for someone that's successful like yourself, that is able to put some funds forward to create something that could be magical, it's very refreshing, because we've had a lot of people on here, and we've had, listen, the height of the hype projects that did make $30 million in a week, and that's all fine and dandy, but what you're accomplishing is kind of cool. And like, just to finally resonate with what Maddie says, we firmly, you know we love what we do. We really do believe in people. We believe in being genuine. We believe in the power of love. We believe in the power of kindness and the power of learning and growing. And that's what your project is. And every show that we have, I get to learn from an amazing human like yourself that's had totally different experiences. And, like, for instance, loved hearing about your time growing up in Venezuela and your reaction of what it's like being in the US, and you working for these huge companies, and just hearing all these different things. I've become a better person because of this last 2.5 hours. So thank you for sharing all the knowledge. Thank you for your kindness. And to finally just reiterate what Maddie said, this is absolutely the beginning of a friendship in our mind. We're here to help you out, man. And just thank you so much for your time, because people like yourself that are successful, the most valuable thing you have is time. So it means the world to us that you spent the time with us tonight. So thank you, man.
Maggie, thank you very much for your words. I really appreciate it. This was a really fun conversation, and it was a great spending time with you and with the audience. I hope that they get as much of what you just mentioned, and it will make me super proud. That was the concept from the beginning, right? Putting out value out, and hopefully it will ricochet back
Yeah.
to my community somehow.
People are loving you. There's been chatter the entire time, so it hasn't been a ghost town. And you have some diehard fans in the Midlife Crisis crew. We'll send them. Do you have a Discord? I don't even know. I didn't check if you have a Discord.
We have a Discord. You can find it on our website.
Okay, yeah, I'll send them the website, the Discord, and who knows, you might have some MLC fam putting some MLC etched memories in your locket sooner than later as well. So thank you, man. Thank you so much to all of you listening to us tonight. We are still double-digit strongs across our platforms. 2 hours and 36 minutes later, that means the world to us. We freaking love you all. We'll be back Thursday with some old friends, Cryptid 3D Punks. These guys are still grinding, and they have like relaunched their collection 2 or 3 times. That's how much they believe in the metaverse. Should be a fascinating conversation.